I would like to now call the December 9th, 2025 Longmont City Council study session to order. The live stream of this meeting can be viewed at the city's YouTube channel or the Longmont Public Media website, https //longmontpublicmedia.org, or Comcast channels 8 or 880. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Hidalgo-Ferring.
Present.
Mayor, Councilmember Christ.
Present.
Councilmember Marsing.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCoy.
Present.
Councilmember Popkin.
Here.
And Councilmember Prieto.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Very good. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak at public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list outside of the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at public invited to be heard. And each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Can we have motions to, are there any motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items for future agendas? Did you have one? Okay, Councilmember Prieto.
Yes, so based off of our conversation about the CARES program last council meeting, I would like to make a motion to direct staff to bring back an ordinance updating our utility disconnection procedures sometime around first quarter to ensure that once a CARES application is received, the applicant is temporarily protected from shutoff until eligibility is determined.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to direct staff was moved by Councilmember Prieto, seconded by Councilmember Marsing. Is there any discussion? Okay, so let's go ahead and vote. Oh, it's what she said. So, okay, and the screen went away, but it looked like it passed unanimously. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to public invited to be heard. Yep, let's go ahead and begin. And were there other lists? Pass them down. The first one. So the first person on the list is Joseph Harper.
That's not on, Joseph. You gotta push the
Oh,
button.
turn on your mic. Oh. Can you see that?
Thank you.
Perfect.
Good evening, Mayor, Longmont City Council, and fellow Longmonters. I was a physical security officer for 9 years in Longmont and across the Northern Front Range. In my experience, I've seen that the presence of surveillance cameras, even when they are clearly presented to the public with ample signage and in easily visible locations, do not deter unlawful activity. People still trespassed on our property, vandalized corporate property and that of our employees, and provided little of use when major incidents involved law enforcement. Even though my fellow Longmonters will likely approach this issue from a privacy standpoint, which is entirely valid, you'll counter with crime prevention, probably. I'm here to review this, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next person, Andrew Gentry. So, and provide us with your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Andrew Gentry. I live on 2613 15th Avenue in Longmont. I've been a homeowner in Longmont for 5 years, and I worked as a lead software engineer for our local business, Sticker Giant, for 3 of those years. I recently learned that our government is considering further investment with flock safety. This surprised me because as someone in the technology field, I see news about negligence and mismanagement by this company on what feels like a weekly basis. Across the state, communities just like ours are expressing concerns about how rapidly flock systems have been shoehorned into their cities, often without adequate oversight. To inform myself, I turned to official longmont.gov web pages. I wanted to look at both our crime statistics and how flock cameras are being used. Not only did I find that our year-over-year crime rate has remained flat since 2020, including stolen vehicle incidents, I also uncovered significant inconsistencies between the page describing flock cameras and the page describing our existing community safety cameras, different from flock. There's about 32 of them existing right now. First, Longmont's websites state that community safety cameras do not perform predictive analytics or facial recognition. That same assurance is absent from the flock page, leading me to believe that this privacy standard may have been quietly discarded with flock's adoption. Second, the community cameras page lists all the camera locations and even provides a map. No such information is provided for flock cameras. This lack of transparency suggests intentional information withholding. Lastly, flock's data retention policy doubles the length of retention used for community cameras, from 14 days to 30 days. Once again, signaling to me that the flock program has been a convenient way to stretch existing privacy standards. I will also point out that independent researchers have reported that flock's retention guarantees are often complete fabrications, so the point may be moot anyways. My core concern is transparency and trust. Like everyone here today, I want a safe community, but not at the cost of our privacy or the human judgment that defines good policing. The trajectory of this program is rapidly eroding the trust in our public safety department. Believe me. At the end of the day, I want to place my faith in the men and women that serve my community, not in the opaque AI forensics of a $7 billion tech company. I urge this council to suspend all contracts with flock safety until the city can provide reasonable justification for their use and address the privacy discrepancies between flock's mass surveillance system and our existing transparently communicated community surveillance cameras. Thank you.
Order, no clapping, please. So we're trying to conduct the orderly function of our meeting. Next person on the list is Sam Ormsby.
Hello, my name is Sam. I'm also a Longmont resident. I live on 9th Street. I was also wanting to voice my opinion that we should not renew our contract with Flock Safety. The current lack of oversight and regulation, that means that there is currently no warrant or even probable cause that is required for law enforcement to use that information collected by Flock in whatever way they see fit, means that it is currently rife for abuse in its current form. Unless legislation and regulation catches up with the technology currently being used by law enforcement, it is irresponsible for Longmont to renew this contract. That's all I got.
Great, thank you. Rebecca Teasdale. Oh, actually, that was just you. Diego Luis? No, I'm Rebecca Teasdale. Oh, you are Rebecca. Okay. And Diego, be ready.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Teasdale, and I live at 4008 Fowler Lane. I'm here as a long-term resident of the Lake McIntosh neighborhood, and having lived at the intersection of 17th and Airport since 2003, I've seen traffic at that intersection increase dramatically as the population of Longmont has grown substantially without adequate infrastructure accommodations. In fact, I live next door to 4002 Fowler Lane, which just last week suffered at the hands of a drunk teenager who plowed through the stop sign again, across our cul-de-sac, up a driveway, and through the garage wall of my next door neighbor's house. I actually used to live in that house myself. It's very scary. Airport Road and 17th are now both used as de facto crosstown thoroughfares, and speed limits are rarely followed or enforced, making the intersection far more dangerous than it should be. Entering and exiting the neighborhood at any time of the day feels frightening and risky, and the flashing stop sign and the speed limit indicator on 17th do very little to slow the traffic. I've personally been first on the scene of many terrifying accidents and DUI incidents over the years, as many of my neighbors here with me tonight can attest. If I recall correctly, and please do fact check me on this, the original plan for our neighborhood called for an ingress-egress point on Lakeshore Drive, but it was challenged by neighbors on Lakeshore and then changed by the city to the current intersection location. In other words, the city set up the intersection years ago to be highly problematic and a growing danger. And with this in mind, and on behalf of my family and neighbors, I'm asking you to please take some more immediate measures to mitigate the dangers that we all face coming and going from our homes before someone is seriously injured or killed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Diego Luis.
Hi, I'm Diego with, I live on, I live off of Collier Street. Council members, mayor, thank you for your time. I'm here today to urge you not to renew the city's contract with Flock Safety because the evidence shows that these systems are ineffective, insecure, legally questionable, and repeatedly misused. First, Flock does not make communities safe or reduce crime. In 2021, the Electronic Frontier Foundation analyzed data sets from 63 police departments in California and found that only 0.05% of those millions of license plates scanned were connected to any suspected wrongdoing at all. The overwhelming majority of that data collected is from completely innocent people going about their daily lives. And even when these ALPR, automatic license plate reader systems, do flag a plate, the technology is unreliable. There are well-documented cases like the incident in Aurora, Colorado, where police acting on an ALPR alert held an innocent black family at gunpoint, including a child as young as 6 years old. In San Francisco, an ALPR misread led officers to pull a woman from her car at gunpoint, handcuff her, and humiliate her in public, only to later admit that the suspected car wasn't even the same make or model. Flock's claim of increasing safety simply do not match the real-world outcomes. Second, the data Flock collects is not secure. In November 2025, a security researcher found that Russian hacking sites have openly posted Flock login information for sale. That means foreign actors were possibly able to access data tied to our residents' movements, travel patterns, and daily routines. Flock stores location data for millions of drivers, and yet they have failed the most basic responsibility of keeping that data safe. Third, Flock fundamentally undermines our Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search. Instead of requiring a warrant or individualized suspicion, Flock cameras allow police to conduct dragnet location tracking on everyone all the time. The ACLU of Massachusetts found that Flock's default police contract even gives the company the right to share the data with federal and local agencies, including immigration and customs enforcement, even when a police department tries to limit access to its own officers. This turns what should be targeted, warrant-based searches into mass surveillance systems that bypasses judicial oversight entirely. Fourth, Flock cameras are prone to harmful mistakes. ALPR systems across the country have misread plates, confused vehicle types, and produce fall hits that escalate into dangerous and possibly lethal encounters. The pattern is clear. The errors don't just inconvenience people, they cause traumatic, life-altering police stops. When technology is this error-prone, the harm is not an accident. It is an inevitability. Finally, Flock and ALPR systems in general have been repeatedly misused by police, both individually and systemically. Officers around the country have used ALPR and DMV databases to stalk their ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, spy on their neighbors, monitor activists, and look up journalists. The ACLU's investigations show that police departments often lack meaningful oversight.
Thank you. Jill Hubert. Okay, no clapping, please. Thank you. Sit, yeah. Jill Hubert. Okay, I'm going to move on. Linda Bowler.
I'm not going to speak. Somebody sort of represented what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. Kellen Lask.
Good evening. Okay. I'm Kellen Lask. I live at 903 Reynolds Farm Lane. Lived in Longmont for about 4 years now. I'm here today to also speak out against Flock. Many people can speak out to the social problems with Flock, but I am a lead software engineer with about a decade and a half's worth of experience, including graduate level machine learning courses. So I have quite a bit of knowledge about how these technical systems actually work. And Flock is truly awful. To start there, it's very insecure. It's about as secure as like your grandma's email address. We have cases where people are able to go up and put the Flock camera into debug mode, connect to the Wi-Fi network that it generates, and then pull imagery off of the Flock cameras. So I could, if I wanted, just wander around Longmont and pull Longmont imagery off of these cameras. They're very insecure. I also want to talk about how any promise they make is basically a lie. They use internet connectivity to update these cameras. Part of how we do this in the software industry is we load all of the software that we could ever want onto the device, and then we use what's called feature flagging to actually turn off and on features that we want. So they say, for example, that these cameras don't do facial recognition and person identification. I guarantee the software is on those cameras to do those things, and they have just disabled it. And that is a 5-minute update to turn it on. And then what they're going to do is they're going to whisk all of this data off to servers where they can cross-reference it with other data systems and piece together entire lineages of where people go, what people do, who they meet with in their lives. These are all things that are feasibly done with other technologies today. They have just not turned it on with Flock, but it can be done very quickly, very easily, very silently. And also, there's things like data clean rooms. A lot of these services say they don't share your private data. They do what's called a data clean room, where they load all of your personal information into this room. Like Facebook, for example, they want to share your information with Target. They've said that they won't do that. They load all the data into this clean room together. They do all this cross-referencing and stuff in the data clean room, and then they export the result of that data sharing. So they did not technically share data. However, the result of data sharing is now out for them to use in the world. That's how they do this. And Flock can use similar strategies to share your information. Any promise they make, honestly, you really just can't believe because there's so many ways around it. That's all.
Great, thank you. Daniel Oliver.
Good evening, council members and members of our community. I'm Daniel Oliver of 1221 Broad Street, and I've lived in Longmont for over a decade. I've never spoken at a public meeting, and I imagine that many of my fellow citizens here have never spoken in a public meeting either. Flock cameras collect and store data on every passing vehicle. That means that every member of this council and everyone in this room has probably had our license plate and location data vacuumed up into a for-profit company's database that is outside any transparency or democratic accountability. By simply running errands, going to work, or visiting friends, this unaccountable company knows where we are, and we have no idea what they're doing with that data. From April 2024 to August of this year, Flock camera data from Denver was searched by ICE 1,400 times. ICE has also searched the data from Flock cameras in Windsor and Loveland. All of this was discovered after the fact and only after a CORA request was submitted. We have the right to decide what kind of city we want Longmont to be, and it's clear that there's an overwhelming consensus that the people of Longmont don't want Flock cameras in our community. We live in a democracy, and the city should end its contract with this company immediately.
Thank you. Grace Keeling.
Hi, my name is Grace Keeling. My husband and I were attracted to the quiet, peaceful McIntosh Farm neighborhood and bought our house on Fowler Lane in October of 2023. Within 2 weeks, a vehicle traveling on Airport at a dangerously high speed disregarded the stop sign at 17th Street. They went through the intersection, crashing and causing property damage to our shared driveway and our adjacent neighbor's property. About 3 weeks later, a flashing stop sign was placed at the intersection on Airport Road and 17th. Unfortunately, this was not the sole incident in the 2 years that I've lived there. Just 11 days ago, another vehicle did the same thing, running the intersection, but this time crashed into our carriage house, causing extensive damage to the structure and its interior contents, including my husband's automobile. Longmont's population continues to grow, and traffic volume is increasing on Airport Road. I feel it's not if, but when a school child, a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or a motorist is going to die. In the interest of public safety, it's important to find a solution for this intersection that will be effective soon. We feel a roundabout with rock boulders on the island at the intersection of Airport Road and 17th would be a good solution. I've sent a couple of the council members some photos from my incident. I'm not sure if I have the actual address, but I can send the photos tomorrow when I have the actual correct email addresses. Thank you. Please consider this.
Thank you. Gwen Steele.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and neighbors. My name is Gwen Steele, and I live at 629 Robert Street. There are a lot of things that make me feel safer in my community, and I can assure you that mass surveillance and data collection are not some of those things. I'm very concerned about data security with Flock. I'm very concerned about how that data might be misinterpreted and misused against myself and my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, Mike Speisbach. And correct me if I misspoke.
It's
your last-
Speisbach, but you were
Speisbach,
close, yeah.
okay.
I'm also here to speak out against the use of flock cameras in here. I think they should be removed immediately, and we should definitely not renew our contract. You only need to go on YouTube to look at towns just south of Denver where a lady was wrongfully accused by the police department of stealing packages that she didn't do because the flock cameras said she did. She had to defend herself. And additionally, if you watch that video, the police officer says, "You can't take a breath outside here without our cameras knowing it." And that is not a world I want to live in, but it's definitely not a town I want to live in. And I don't want my taxpayer money to fund AI Big Brother surveilling me. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Stephanie Oliver.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Oliver of 1221 Bross Street. As someone who's worked for Boulder County in emergency management and public safety and a City of Longmont resident for 10 years, I urge council not to renew the contract with Flock. Industry reporting shows that Flock subscriptions models run about $2,500 per camera per year. Based on my research, it seems that the city has 15 Flock cameras. At that rate, the city's reoccurring bill for 15 Flock cameras would be roughly $37,000 per year. Money that could be used for alternatives like community safety programs, or to stop teenage drunk drivers from ramming into neighbors' garages, or hiring more spatial analysts to stop crime and accidents. The Longmont's 2024 budget included $68,000 for a one-time Flock LPR camera fee. That was inside a broader smart city camera project, but the city's budget documents do not clearly break out the per camera installation or contract details. That is an accountability gap already. In addition, these Flock cameras are especially bad in bad lighting, snow, dirt, when a plate is bent or obstructed. False hits can trigger high-risk traffic stops, where officers believe that they're pulling over a stolen vehicle or violent suspect. Several documented national cases show errors leading to traumatic and unsafe police practices. When these alerts go off frequently, including for minor warrants or false alerts, officers get pulled off of high priority calls. This includes reduced patrol presence, response times, and availability during emergencies. Officers themselves have voiced concerns in multiple cities that constant flock cameras has turned into a time-consuming wild goose chase. These flock cameras do not improve safety within our city, but they waste officer time and money. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista Alberg.
Hi, I'm Krista Alberg. I live at 219 Francis Street. I'm also coming to ask that City Council cancels Longmont contract with flock cameras. While the intent may be to reduce crime, this good intention does not eliminate the proven past instances of footage being abused and misinterpreted to arrest innocent people, as well as all the other shortcomings and failures that others before me have exhibited with more data and statistics than I have. I would like to speak instead about some hypotheticals. As we know, Flock Cannon has shared data with other jurisdictions, regardless of local privacy protections. And in our federal political climate, where free speech and rights are infringed upon daily for immigrants, people of color, women, and other groups, the potential use for this technology is frightening. As one small example, like many people in Longmont, I've attended political protests in town and perhaps expressed views that may not be held by those in power in local, state, or federal office. It's only too easy for me to imagine how Flock's data could be used against me or anyone engaging in an act of protest or even simple kindness to a fellow human being. I don't want to live in a Longmont which enables that, so I am urging City Council not to renew the contract with Flock. Thank you.
Thank you. Pavel Ivanov.
Good evening, council members. Last time I was here, I mentioned my personal experience in Russia and how cameras put in good faith to track criminals and deter crime have been used maliciously to track political opponents, journalists, and otherwise non-welcome citizens. Today I would like to expand on this. In 2017, Russian authorities started to implement the face recognition into their already installed cameras. Today, 300,000 AI cameras and 700,000 normal cameras that are due to be upgraded to AI are active across Russia, with the majority installed in the capital, Moscow. That is data from 2024. Just like in the US, if we look at the positive consequences, we do see some local better policing, we see better crime rates, more caught criminals. Council, my humble opinion, it doesn't matter. We cannot trade freedom, liberty, and non-surveillance for that perceived safety, when that control and surveillance can be turned against anyone. It doesn't make cities better, it doesn't make citizens happier, and it surely doesn't help with public's opinion of the police and safety enforcement. The worst example of this camera used against private citizens was in 2021. There were massive protests with 100,000 people in Moscow and hundreds of thousands across Russia against President Putin and his corrupt dictatorship. It was the first big protest where people were not detained, they were not physically assaulted or otherwise hurt on the protest itself. What followed was way worse. Months and years of individual detentions, persecutions, where the activists were brought in court for accusations of failure to follow protest procedures and similar bogus charges. More than 180 court cases were filed within the first week after the protest, and at least 450 convictions were done during the first year after it. Another media report also just reported that it only cost $200 to do a complete check on anyone in Russia with this database. Adjusted for household income in America, it is approximately $500 here. Council, $500 for a complete profile is what will happen if we allow data like that to be collected. We just cannot let that happen, even for good. And Russia has the same safeguards as America does. In Russia, we do have a constitution promising freedom of speech, freedom to protest, freedom to express ourselves. Over the years, that freedom has been slowly eroded away, and such technology has been monumental in this process. Now, I wasn't born here, and some may say it doesn't matter what I think, but it is not just me. President Lincoln is quoted in 1883, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." and Russia is actively destroying itself. Tools like that allow the non-efficient, fraudulently elected officials, silence the critics, control the narrative, and push the country into poverty and worldwide isolation. Panopticons like that were created with small steps like flock cameras, offering not only control but offline direct surveillance. It helps that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can you restate your name? I know I mispronounced it.
No worries.
So I
It's
apologize.
Pavel Ivanov.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Gabriel V.S.
Good evening, members of City Council and fellow residents of Longmont. My name is Gabe Vias. I live at 3800 Pike Road. And for the last 5 years, I've worked in the data destruction industry all across the Front Range, safeguarding everything from neighborhood coffee shops, credit card logs, to the archives of the Denver Broncos. And in every setting, the rule has been the same. Whenever personal data changes hands, there must be clear, documented lines of communication with the people whose information is at stake. That's why today I'm here to speak about the proposed renewal of Longmont's contract with Flock. While the technology promises benefits, traffic monitoring, crime deterrence, faster emergency response, it also raises profound privacy concerns that have ignited controversy nationwide. First, I do not feel that our community was adequately informed of the installation of these cameras. When a municipality installs devices capable of capturing not just license plates, but full facial images, movement patterns, and behavioral habits, the stakes are far higher than a simple traffic camera. Residents deserve to know exactly what data is being collected, how it is being stored, who can access it, and for how long. That omission runs counter to the transparency standards I have upheld throughout my career. Transparency is not a bureaucratic nicety, it is the foundation of effective governance. And secondly, the nature of this data demands explicit consent. Unlike a speed camera that records a single moment, Flock's AI continuously learns from our faces, our routes, and our daily routines, essentially constructing a digital portrait of each citizen. This is not merely license plate data. It is a repository of identity. And when the city partners with a private vendor to harvest such intimate information, the public must be given a genuine opportunity to understand and, if desired, opt out of it. So today, I'm asking for immediate disclosure to all citizens of Longmont before the city takes any further action with Flock. Plain language summary of the existing contract and an easy way for all citizens to access it. I'd also ask that the city does not renew their agreement with Flock. This would lock Longmont into a system that continuously builds portraits of every citizen far beyond simple license plate reads. And I would ask that the city remove the existing Flock cameras until we as a community can decide on some kind of surveillance ordinance that sets a proper precedence for this technology as it continues to develop. In closing, I want to stress that technology itself is not the enemy here. Secrecy is. When we, the people of Longmont, become the data, we have a right and a necessity to know how it is used. By demanding openness now, we protect our privacy, preserve our trust in our institutions, and set a responsible precedent for the future.
Thank you. Shaquille Dalal.
Shaquille Dalal, 219 Francis Street. For the past 5 years, I have served on the Professional Standards Unit of the City of Longmont. The PSU is a panel composed of public safety employees and members of the public, and is a part of the legacy of El Comite's work to ensure that members of the public are treated fairly by police. We review investigations of misconduct by public safety employees. Our core function is to build trust between the public safety and the people of Longmont. During my term, I've watched a lot of body camera footage of Longmont police officers interacting with the public under a wide variety of circumstances. Because of the nature of our panel, the behavior that we are reviewing is inevitably the behavior that we as a community would be the least proud of. I can say that without a doubt, this experience has dramatically increased my level of trust in Longmont police. However, that is not to say that they are without fault. I deeply respect their passion for solving crimes and for ensuring the safety of every person in the city of Longmont. But I think that that passion creates blind spots, particularly when it comes to navigating the admittedly gray line between protecting the short-term safety of the public and respecting their rights. Flock Safety provides dragnet persistent surveillance that privacy advocates like the ACLU and Electronic Frontier Foundation warn are actively being used to violate the rights of Longmont residents. If the police wanted a time-stamped records of every time you drove your car around Longmont, they would have to get a warrant. But because this data is collected by a private corporation motivated by profit, courts have determined that somehow it is okay for law enforcement to buy this data. That does not make it right for the city of Longmont to add to or use this data. It does not make me trust the police more. In this era, when all you have to do is look around to see masked thugs kidnapping innocent people under the guise of law enforcement, it makes me trust the police less. You may be told later that Longmont Public Safety has disabled sharing of data collected in Longmont with other jurisdictions. You should read the contract between Flock and the city of Longmont, which includes a, quote, non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide royalty-free license, unquote, to share the data with other agencies, whether Longmont approves of it or not. The ACLU has analyzed this contract and others and concludes, quote, Flock can share driver surveillance data even when police departments opt out, unquote. Our public safety department has many practices that others should emulate. Whether there is their longstanding commitment to restorative justice, inclusion of a citizen panel in misconduct investigations, or diligent hiring practices designed to screen out bad cops that are trying to hop jurisdictions. It is incongruous to me that the same organization dedicated to those ends believes that the use of Flock is appropriate. And so, for that reason, I am asking you, my elected representatives, to uphold your oath to support the Constitution of the United States and end the contract between Longmont and Flock Safety.
Next person, Jason Kent.
Hello, Jason Kent, Ward 1. So I believe that council was in a meeting prior to this to discuss your safety and security, which I think is relevant because I believe that everyone in this room who is speaking about this topic is speaking about it because they don't feel safe or secure living in a society where they can be watched and tracked in this way. So Flock is ultimately a data broker, right? They're a company, they're a corporation worth over $7 billion. They market themselves as a public safety company, but really they're a data broker. They collect data, they're going to share data, they're going to sell data. That is the way they operate. So this puts our privacy at risk, and therefore it puts our safety at risk. Interestingly enough, the CEO of Flock Safety, Garrett Langley, did an interview with Forbes, and he called the deflock movement, which I would say is the people in this room who are concerned about this technology, terrorists and Antifa. And I don't think I see any terrorists in this audience personally. I think I see people that are concerned about their safety and security. Flock also recently announced a data sharing partnership with Ring, and with this partnership, police departments would be able to request Ring footage directly from homeowners. This is basically, warrantless data collection by consent rather than a process. When we're looking at a system like this, we have to think about not exactly what it's capable of now necessarily, but what will it be capable of in the future, right? There's only 15 cameras in Longmont. That's not that crazy if you look at Denver, right? What if we have 30? What if we have 60? There are currently 80,000 cameras nationwide. What does the world look like when there are 800,000 cameras nationwide that can do facial detection? I ask you to please carefully consider what is at stake and do not renew the contract with Flock Safety. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next person on the list I have is Margaret Klein.
Hi, I'm here again tonight to make a personal plea to please cancel the city's contract with
And
Flock.
can you state your name and address for the record? Or
Margaret
name.
Klein, please refer to the sheet for my address. And please consider terminating the city's contract with Flock and removing the cameras as soon as you possibly can. I believe the contract is due for renewal next month, but I'm not sure. This just makes it feel like much more urgent concern. If you're in the audience and in support of removing the Flock cameras from our city, feel free to silently put your hand up for the duration of my speech. The widespread sharing of data absolutely will undermine our community's trust in law enforcement. I want my neighbors and I to be able to trust in our city's public safety, and Flock really does erode that. I'm not exceptionally worried about how Longmont PD responds to the data Flock collects. I'm worried about how other entities and bad actors, especially Flock itself, This is not the final iteration of this technology either. As a social worker, I abide by the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, which not only outlines my duties to my clients, but it lays forth my ethical responsibilities to the broader society. Specifically, as this refers to in section 6.4a, social and political action, social workers should be aware of the impact of the political arena on practice and should advocate for changes in policy and legislation to improve social conditions to meet basic human needs and promote social justice. So I'm up here speaking on behalf of my neighbors, and you all are my neighbors as well. And also my neighbors who don't have the privileges that I have, and to request that the City Council move to protect us all from this invasive surveillance technology. The largest burden will be shouldered by people who hold marginalized identities, who are just going about their lives trying to make ends meet. I'm concerned about Flock Systems' possible use for civil immigration's enforcement to criminalize access to reproductive health care and or gender-affirming health care. There are more examples than I have time to give of Flock allowing immigration agents to access their data even illegally. And Flock has been exposed for funding their own studies and hiring their own researchers to show how useful the system is in fighting crime. The validity and credibility of that research is dubious. Personally, years ago, I was stalked extensively, both in person and virtually. I actually had people following me to work, home, keeping track of where I went. This horrifying experience left long-lasting scars on my soul, and it took me many years to regain an intact sense of safety. Even to this day, I use the confidential voting program to not have my home address displayed, etc. Behaviorally, it impacted how I interact with technology, namely social media, in that I, for the most part, opt out of it entirely. There is no option to opt out of Flock's invasive surveillance. The nationwide surveillance network is essentially stalking.
Thank you. Okay, next person on the list, Rosalind Stroman. And please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Rosalind Strumman, and I live at 4012 Fowler Lane here in Longmont, and I'm speaking in regards to the dangerous intersection that's at Airport Road and 17th Avenue. And I think the question presented really is, what steps can the city take that are reasonable to make it a more safe intersection? I've lived there since 2002. There have been several accidents. There's been a death. And part of the problem is that Airport Road, for every intersection, it has signal lights, except one. It's the last one. It's a stoplight. And the road then continues for 1 block. Now, it's not too surprising that people who are going 45, 50 miles an hour up Airport Road, even if they shouldn't be, are suddenly surprised to see a stop sign at the end of like 3 or 4 miles. There was a stop sign that was put in that has flashing lights, and that was effective. It was effective for 2 years. Unfortunately, like I said, there's been the accident of this vehicle comes screaming over and runs into a garage. So the question is, what reasonable steps can be taken? And we've written letters before, people have talked before, and other than the stop sign, nothing has happened. So that's why we're here again, complaining. There are some short-term fixes that could be done. You could put rumble strips on Airport Road as it approaches the stop sign. That would help. There is no sign that says no outlet that's like right on the entrance of our cul-de-sac. That could happen. Right now it's like halfway down the block and people go, oh, you can't drive through here. I think we could also have that no outlet sign, like on a 10-foot post, with the flashing LED lights. I think that would make a difference. Also, there are problems with people making a right turn and they don't know that they shouldn't stop. There could be another sign on the second lamppost that says no stopping for right turns. I mean, these are little things and they sound like just niggly things. However, they would be effective, and at some point in time, someone is going to get killed. And it's just a matter of time. Taking these steps, I think a signal light is going to need to be put in eventually. We've been told it is so expensive. Sooner or later, since it's a conduit for so much traffic, that's going to happen. But until it does, do these steps. Just make it safer for everybody. I know there's discussion about a roundabout. I don't know if that's feasible, but we just don't want to make a problem for more people to make when we're just trying to make it safer instead. That's it. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Michael Denslow.
Can I put that there? Yeah, there we go. Michael Denslow, 4738 Ipswich Street. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to express my strong opposition to Longmont's flock program. I live in unincorporated Boulder County, and I'm a frequent visitor to Longmont for business and pleasure. A wise person once said that arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying that you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. I oppose this sort of surveillance program for several reasons. Here are three. Data security. I work in technology, including AI. My knowledge of data, security, and AI models gives me many reasons to be concerned about the rapid proliferation of these programs. It has already been demonstrated that Flock's infrastructure is weak and vulnerable. They have already shown that they are not trustworthy curators of our data. 2, misuse of data. Data collection by Flock has already been misused in several cases. We've seen the case of a Denver woman who was wrongly accused of stealing a package. It's really absurd if you think about it. An AI model told the police to cite someone in another city for stealing a $25 package. No one took the time to try and verify this or to look more into it before making this person prove their innocence. Did Flock explain why this mistake happened? Did they outline what changes they plan to make that prevent this in the future? They have not. What happens when this involves a much more serious crime? We have seen several cases in Colorado alone of police officers using Flock to track people for personal reasons. This last example should come as no surprise to anyone, and this is not simply me taking a swipe at police. If you give a person unlimited access to a powerful tool like Flock, it's not outlandish to think that they might use it inappropriately in an emotional moment. Lack of transparency. 3. The lack of transparency of these programs is deeply troubling. If we see a Flock camera, how do we even know who paid for it? There's ones that are just outside the Longmont limit that are, are they part of Longmont? Are they part of Boulder? It's hard for us to find out. Who has access to the data? The idea that we can't get answers about how data is collected or analyzed or archived, but yet we should trust this, it's in our best interest, is simply ludicrous. Lastly, this isn't about the government. This is also about surveillance capitalism. They basically are seeking to monetize our personal information. That's a lot of what Flock is doing, as other people have pointed out. Flock wants to do this at our very own expense. So please bring some much needed sanity to this discussion and end this program today. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Now we're on to the next page. Lance Whitaker. Page 2. No, 2. 2 of 2.
Bear with me. I got a prop here.
Oh my, okay.
All right, now we're set. All right, today is National Lutefisk Day. I don't know what that is, but if you served it to me, I probably wouldn't need it. It's also National Christmas Card Day. I just delivered a whole bunch of them, so if you didn't get it, probably not going to get it. It's also National Pastry Day. I do a lot of cooking, so I love pastries. It's National Weary Willy Day, and that's sort of the reason I'm wearing the willy today. And it's also National Red Fox Day, or birthday. So anybody who knew Red Fox probably loved my living room. I'd also like to say something on a serious note and about Flock cameras. You know, they say that anytime you give up your freedom for safety, neither is achieved. So just keep that in mind, that, we don't want to give up our freedom or our security. So please don't install more Flock cameras, or even take out some of them would be great. You guys have a good day, and thanks again.
Thank you. Mac Childress.
Hi, my name is Mac Childress. I live at 1529 South Terry Street, and I'm here to speak about the flock cameras. I am against the flock cameras. A lot of my points have already been made, so I'm going to bring up tourism. We've talked a lot recently in the election about the tourism revenue generated by Longmont from our neighboring communities, and I'd like to say that if people show up here and they feel watched, they are not going to feel welcomed. And I think that money coming in from other nearby communities, people who feel welcome here, people who know how nice it is to come to Longmont and spend their money on our small businesses, if that goes away, then we're going to have a lot less money for all of the things that our community needs. In addition, I wasn't really coming here to talk about this, but the 17th and Airport intersection, I would agree, is a big problem. Part of the reason I live on South Terry Street is because I used to live up north really close to 17th, and the traffic there was really bad. There was a lot of road noise, especially late at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m. from cars just being really, really loud. So I agree that that's a problem.
Thank you. Tracy Vitullo.
Hi, I'm Troy Vitullo and have bad handwriting.
Well, I was way off.
That's all right. I'm pretty sloppy.
Yeah.
I was born in Longmont, Colorado, and I live at 6 Kodiak Court today, and this is my first council meeting. And I'm here to express my desire for us to not continue that flock contract as well. We've heard a lot of good reasons, and I just want to bring up one that was brought up to me when I decided I wanted to speak today, and that is compassion. I was ready to come up here and angrily rail at the idea that we would even consider it in this town, and it's clear that that's no way to reach anybody. So what I want to ask is for you to have compassion for the people who live here. We don't want to be surveilled. We've made that incredibly clear. I also want to consider compassion for the city of Longmont itself. The legal grounds upon which flock is based is less and less stable. Already the state of Washington, a city, I don't remember the name of the town right now, they've declared flock records public records. That made the city, forced the city to back out of their flock contract, or else all of that data was going to be available to everybody in that city. No longer do you have to worry about people in authority being freaky with the data. You have to be worried about everybody being freaky with that data. I don't think we want that. And I would hate to see the city lose the money for this flock contract because we had to back out of it to protect our citizens. Honestly, I think that money would be a lot better spent for a light on Airport Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, Louis Horn.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Louis Horn, 3817 Fowler Lane. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Longmont Council members. I'm standing here today, as I did 2 years ago, to voice my concern about a very dangerous and potentially deadly intersection, and that would be 17th and Airport Road. As you know, these are two of the main arteries in our city, each with 4 lanes. That's a total of 8 lanes each that meet at or before the intersection at a T, where Airport Road ends. Directly across 17th from Airport is the entrance to the Lake McIntosh Farm community, where I live. I was told after the last time I spoke here that a roundabout was proposed for the intersection, but was put on the back burner. Instead, a flashing stop sign was installed at the end of Airport Road. And recently I heard that the flashing red lights on the stop sign appear green if you're intoxicated. So in short, the flashing stop sign isn't working. What's it going to take to get the proposed roundabout installed? What are you waiting for, Council? Since moving here 2.5 years ago from Pennsylvania, I know of at least 7 property damaging and potentially deadly accidents as a result of that intersection. 6 of those 7 were inside of our community alone. This summer, a vehicle heading east veered off the road, ran over a sidewalk at that intersection, through a cinder block wall, taking several feet of the wall on either side with it. Thankfully, the car involved landed in a yard between two houses. This happened across the street from our community. On Black Friday, you heard our neighbor speak of her carriage house getting hit. I can also mention that I was here for the 2 years ago in that same driveway. A car traveling from airport entered our community, flipped upside down, rolled over, then came to a rest on its roof. We had another incident where the car narrowly missed a house by inches. It went up an embankment over bushes and through our fence, missing the house by inches. I mention this only because there's a middle school located just south of that intersection. Children from our neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods walk to and from school on those sidewalks. They traverse that dangerous intersection twice a day, every day, and it's only by the grace of God and a crossing guard that no child has been hit yet. What are you waiting for? The accidents are going to keep happening until this intersection is fixed correctly. Madam Mayor, council members, let's get the proposed roundabout or similar permanent solution to this public safety issue off the back burner and get it done so that I'm not standing here again talking about how deadly the intersection has become. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Brandt.
Good evening, City Council members, staff, and Mayor. My name is Andrew Brandt. I'm a cybersecurity professional and the Executive Director of Lechmore Hackers. I live in the city of Boulder, but I drive through Longmont on a regular basis. I'm here because I'm aware the city's contract with Flock is due to be renewed in January, and I wanted to share with you some of my concerns as a Boulder County resident with the use of Flock cameras, specifically in cities and unincorporated parts of Boulder County, and with the problematic business behavior of the company Flock more generally. The use of Flock camera technology by Longmont raises many concerns, as you can tell. There's wide reporting that local police agencies perform Flock searches on behalf of ICE, CBP, and other federal agencies. The existence of ALPR data enables them to violate the legal and ethical norms of their roles in order to target individuals for violent arrest, including American citizens who have committed no crime, or to track people who engage in lawful protest activity. In Texas, which has criminalized the very act of seeking reproductive health care, local police and sheriffs have been accused of using Flock data to track women who were suspected of seeking abortions in other jurisdictions, building a case to prosecute those women if they ever return to Texas. Now, I'm not accusing the city of Longmont or the Longmont Police Department of this kind of collusion, but the data collected by Flock cameras nationwide can be searched by any police agency with a contract to use Flock. The fact that this data is being collected within the city limits is the entire problem. A less scrupulous police agency in any other jurisdiction can search the data collected in Longmont, and there are no data privacy guardrails that prevent a less ethical police department from informally sharing that data. Flock has also failed to respond to these concerns in a way that could mitigate the potential for harm. Cities around the country have been sued to stop this overreach. Flock responded by removing access to data collected in California, Illinois, and Virginia from nationwide searches. Some police departments have also shut down the data access after learning it was being used for immigration purposes. This does not stop the collection and marketing of this data. These searches are incredibly intrusive. They may violate the Fourth Amendment, and they can, and probably will, be used to harm Boulder County residents in myriad ways. They also pose a danger to anyone who happens to pass through Longmont en route somewhere else. The extraordinarily problematic practices by Flock that puts ordinary people in danger of being targeted by these federal agencies must not be allowed to continue. Flock's business model has made them the eyes and ears of a modern-day Gestapo operating openly in our communities. I ask that Longmont not renew its contract with Flock in January and take immediate steps to remove the cameras from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg Thornberry.
Hello, I'm Meg. I'm pretty sure you recognize me since I ran for Ward 2. But I am here to also share my concern about the flock cameras. One of the biggest things that I wanted to point out is the fact that the woman in Denver that we've been talking about, who was falsely accused of stealing a package, had to provide her own data to counteract their 100% certainty claim that they had the right person based purely off of the AI's interpretation of flock data. And I wanted to bring attention to how much privilege and resources that she had in order to fight this. And I think we know that Longmont is not just entirely white women. So I think we do have an obligation to protect everyone. And if they're coming for white women, who are they coming for next? And we need to make sure that we are protecting people from getting falsely ticketed, which then could lead to having an unpaid fine, which then can lead to a warrant, which then can lead to being arrested for something that you did not do. So for that perspective, I am going to encourage Longmont not just to not renew the city's contract with Flock, but to go a step farther and to remove the cameras themselves. Because regardless, my understanding is, regardless of the city's contract with Flock, anyone else who has a contract with Flock, federal agencies, have access to Longmont's Flock cameras. So that is my primary concern, is that even if this is not going to Longmont Police, who, by the way, love and trust them so much more than Flock. I want to make sure that we are supporting our police, but I do not believe that Flock is the way to do it. I think it's going to open us up to all sorts of lawsuits. And I think just protecting all of us. We mostly all ran on a campaign to make sure that we represent everyone in Longmont, that we are going to protect everyone in Longmont. And so I really encourage you to try to distance ourselves from Flock as much as possible to make sure that we are prioritizing the least of us in our community. And I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody here. This is incredible to see so many people coming out for this. So I want to appreciate everyone here, everyone who is watching online, and to the city council members to, take note of this. We have a lot of people here who care. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Pomeroy?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. It's good to see you tonight. Dave Pomeroy, 1715 Fowler Lane. I wanted to add my perspective to the very dangerous intersection at 17th and Airport. I've been a resident of the Lake McIntosh Farm neighborhood for 19 years now, so I've seen just about everything that can happen there. I walk my dogs out on 17th probably twice a day, against better reason, but I've seen a lot. My neighbors have detailed the things that have happened, but I can add I've seen accidents on every single corner of that intersection, smashing through the wall on the northeast side and barely missing a house there. Just about a month ago, smashing through the wall on the southeast side and crushing a brick wall there, sliding into the property on the southwest side and smashing into the wall on the northwest side, going through the median in Lake McIntosh Farm more times than I can count, turning a landscape median into a formerly landscape median, hitting our mailboxes and taking out about half a dozen mailboxes several times. We finally moved the mailboxes. We learned from that. And then, as my neighbors detailed, it really got scary a few weeks ago when the garage was hit and turning a 2-car garage into a 3-car garage. So it's really getting scary. We're ready for something to be done. So a few ideas for consideration. One, my neighbors mentioned the crosswalk there for Westview Middle School. I think there should be a lit sign there with a button, because the crossing guard is not there all the time, and there's students that are coming earlier and after that time. A barrier for right-turning traffic coming from northbound Airport onto eastbound 17th, some kind of flexible delineator post or something like that to keep people in that right lane, so you can avoid the people that are coming eastbound from Hygiene Road from meeting up with those vehicles that are turning right and avoiding accidents there. And of course, I think, yes, a roundabout, I think, is probably the right move there. There's a very heavy traffic turning left from 17th onto southbound Airport, and so I think a traffic light would be problematic, but a roundabout makes more sense to me. And finally, if we can find some way to include this in the discussion with Longmont's Vision Zero plan, I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Andrew Palmer.
Good evening. It makes me proud to live in Longmont, to see all the people here defending my and our citizenry's rights. Thank you all. Much like the previous comments, I am here to urge City Council and the Mayor not to renew the city's contract with Flock Safety and to remove these cameras. I hope you don't mind some repetition, but it does bear repeating. Like others, I want to thank the city government and the Public Safety Department for their hard work and tireless efforts to keep Longmont safe. Although I do not believe Flock Safety tools are the right tools for our community, I do appreciate and acknowledge that our public safety department is doing its best to keep us safe. I and many of my other fellow city residents believe that Flock Safety is not a safe or effective steward of Longmont's public safety. In fact, it jeopardizes that safety in several ways. Flock statements about data retention and security are at best misleading, as shown in information security audits of the ALPR hardware. In these audits, it was found that Flock's cameras can be hacked and rooted by novice hackers and could possibly become a tool for surveillance by criminals. They also found that despite Flock claims of pictures not containing cars are not retained, it is possible that these pictures can be saved to the device and can be accessed from the device with little more than a laptop and some know-how. Secondly, Flock's leadership does not stand for the rights of privacy even for law-abiding citizens, nor do they stand for values that Longmont believes in. Flock's CEO has used inflammatory language to describe those citizens attempting to map or track where public safety departments are placing these cameras. It should not be controversial that the location of public infrastructure should be public. Finally, Flock Safety and ALPR cameras have no proven record or research that shows that these cameras can help reduce a community's crime rate. What is shown in sociological research on surveillance is that it makes those who feel watched less happy, feel less safe, and perform poorer on mental tasks. Criminals will find other ways to commit crimes, but our community will be made poorer forever as a result of these cameras watching our every move. That doesn't sound like the Longmont I want to live in. We did not choose this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Rubaker, and you might need to repeat your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Sam Rubaker. Lived in Longmont for almost 5 years, and that's gonna be loud. And I just want to talk about Flock Safety and not renewing their contract. I think I'll make an appeal to anyone's selfish nature. If you guys do renew their contract and don't remove their cameras, I imagine a lot of these people are going to continue to show up and make your Tuesday nights long and not super fun. So maybe just think about that. Also, the money that we're spending on Flock could probably go and fix these people's intersection, and also maybe, I don't know, expand and improve Ride Longmont, which is a great program, and that would help decrease drunk driving. And Flock Safety is a for-profit company that profits off of crime activity, and they're not interested in reducing any kind of crime or violence because they need that in order to sell their cameras, and they have not been proven to reduce crime or improve safety at all. This was first city council meeting I've watched on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Look up Ben Jordan's hacking 80,000 Flock cameras on YouTube while you're there. Pretty good video that explains a lot of this and what everyone else has already said. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. The next one on the list, and I can't make out the last name, Andrew Wagner? Wagoner? Okay, thank you. Just repeat it up here. Some of you all got to work on your handwriting.
This is a battle I have been fighting ever since the first grade, and I'm not winning it. I'm sorry. My name's Andrew. I live at 1507 South Kaufman Street. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and be heard and for listening to us. This is not a right that we enjoy when we call an AI customer service line. Anybody who's been at the forefront talking to an AI representative, talking to any AI company knows for a fact that they are impenetrable. They're impenetrable by design. Here we have some accountability. As far as I understand it, I'm not going to rehash all the excellent points that were made earlier tonight. We don't own the data that Flock collects. So in effect, the people of Longmont, the citizens of Longmont, are paying a private company to spy on us for their profit. They make money coming, they make money going. They get everything, and we get left with nothing. The reason we have a city council, of course you guys know this, and I don't, bear with me for the civics lesson here, guys, but the reason we have a city council is there's problems that I can't solve as a resident on my own. I can't solve this on my own. We need you guys to protect all of us from this advancing, creeping, insidious destruction of our freedoms. This is not a good thing, and thank you guys again for the opportunity here. Please don't renew your contract with Flock or anybody else. We've all talked about Flock. There's myriad other companies that do this. Please don't contract out with anybody else and say, well, we didn't contract with Flock. These guys are better. They're not. They're all sharks. They're all snakes, and they're all out to get us. So please, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on this. Let's take the money that we've spent on Flock, and let's put it to the camera, or put it to improving the intersection at 17th and Airport. I've been on that intersection, and it's terrible. Let's use this money for something that is genuine public good versus something that no one can really put an exact idea on how this makes anybody safer. It doesn't, and it's not going to. Then the last thing I want to leave you guys with is Longmont has stood as a technological leader for years. We created our own internet service provider in defiance of gigantic corporations that wanted to own every bit of data that went in and out of Longmont, and we said no. We're one of 2 communities in the state and one of very, very vanishingly few communities in the country that aren't beholden to these giant companies. I can't tell you how proud I was to turn in my cable box with extreme prejudice. These guys are like, can we get you to stay? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I want to go with the guys that I can call who are in my town. I want people who are accountable to the people in this town, not an AI customer service line that we'll never get through to. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Boom! Right on time.
Right on time. You nailed it. Jack Davis. Public comment now. Nope, Jack Davis. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, Kenneth Frederick.
Thank you, Council. My name's Kenneth Frederick. I live off 9th and Pace. Members of the audience, I think just as a exercise, it's really easy to tell how unnerving this whole situation is if you just spend the next 15 minutes, you pick one member of the council, and you look at them and you just monitor them and you check their reaction, you see what they're interested in and what doesn't interest them. It's going to start unnerving them. They're going to start looking out into the audience and constantly checking if you're still watching. I know, because I've been doing it. And I would like to say, everywhere around the country, you never see council members put these cameras in their front yard, right in their streets. I'd like to see the council members be kept safe by these cameras that are supposedly doing so for the rest of the community. I'd also like to spend the last half of my 3 minutes talking about what's going to happen when we get rid of these, because it is happening across the country. Started off in Washington with a FOIA request. You've heard it, but it wasn't really elaborated on. Courts are deciding that Flock camera footage is public information. And as soon as that happens, these cities are taking down these cameras. Because, yeah, who wants everyone in the public to be able to look at it, not just police officers? That's a terrifying kind of prospect, especially when you've already heard from people tonight who have dealt with stalking in their own lives. This is a real issue. And are we really going to wait here in Longmont until we get a FOIA request saying, hey, I'd like just a photo of every member of the council's cars, or whatever the FOIA request is, and when it goes through and the council decides they don't want to give that information to the public, you'll decide the cameras have to come down like every other city that has faced this issue. Really, I'm a little upset because these cities bring these cameras in and they don't read the contracts. They don't realize how little control you guys have over these cameras. Because it is really, you have no control over the software updates. That is 100% a 5-minute update until facial recognition hits those cameras. They told you it wouldn't. And in order to get rid of these cameras, they're putting physical shields over the top of the camera lenses because you can't trust them to be turned off. You're not trusting Flock to do that. You will actually have to spend money to remove these cameras by the time it's already too late. Thank you very much, Council.
Great, thank you. Amber Wisniewski? And please correct me if I mispronounced it.
Hi, I'm Amber Wisniewski. I live on Florentine Drive, and I'm also here to talk about the Flock cameras. As someone who was also a victim of a stalker who actually found me in a completely other country before smartphones, I didn't even have my own laptop at the time. These Flock cameras are open to FOIA requests that would put people like me in danger again. So I'm really thankful that my stalker never got a hold of me, but he did find out what city I was living in. If they could do that before this technology, what are they gonna do now? Number two, I think it's actually kind of hypocritical of the city to have these Flock cameras up supervising or surveilling our citizens, not thinking about our privacy and safety, yet we are not allowed to listen to police scanners because a police officer was stalked, I think 10 years ago, and was harmed due to surveillance. So we can't say that it's good for one, not good for the other. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul Tiger.
Greetings, Council. 29 years in Longmont. Is that those would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And notice that Franklin said purchase. That's what you guys are doing here. You're looking for the easy out to purchase safety. It's not going to work. You've got a whole crowd of people here. So actually, I'm not here about Flock, although it certainly is on my mind. I'm here about darkness. So on November 9th, I fell outside the town hall in darkness. And I sent you all an email, and the only person who responded to me was Jake, because I believe he's the only person who got the email. I think all of my emails going to spam. I ask other people here if they think they're being heard here. I think that there's been some configuration misadjustment, or maybe it's intentional because you really don't need to listen to me. So outside this building, just prior to the renovation, I also fell. Other people have too. There's an alignment with the sidewalk where if you go outside and you look at the steps, and then the sidewalk is tilted, and so it's uneven. Granted, thank you so much for putting up the steel rail. I'll try to use that, but I actually have fallen twice in the past 2 months outside, tumbled and hit the street, bumped into a car, and the police chief came out and gave me some aid, and hopefully risk management will understand. So you're the temporary residents of our building. Please light it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Izzy Becker.
Hi. Hi, my name is Izzy Becker. I live at 1361 Northwestern Road. I came here about Flock, but I will say that intersection is pretty crazy. And one thing I'll say about it is when I moved here about 5 years ago, and I didn't know the layout of coming up because I always come up Airport and then get onto 17th, it was pretty confusing. And it took me a while to like get the hang of like remembering how to properly drive it. So I do think even simple things like rumble strips and stuff would make a big difference with that. So in terms of Flock, I'm against us re-signing our contract with Flock. It's a clear, massive violation of our Fourth Amendment right. Law enforcement do not need warrants, and this sets a really dangerous precedent. This data is shared. It's used by ICE. It's used by other agencies. It doesn't create safety. Up until recently, I was working in Southwest Denver, working with a lot of migrant communities. I will tell you that the combination of like the amount of cameras and the amount of surveillance makes for a really scary environment for them. And a lot of people are actually talking about Flock specifically. And I know you know what happened with Denver and how they pushed through that Flock contract. I guess the last thing that I'll say, because I think most of the things I was going to say have already been said, is we know what's happening here. Like technology is getting to a point that it's just really easy to surveil. It's really easy to do things that are sort of reminiscent of those totalitarian books we would read growing up. And I think that we all know that this is like the place where we have to take a stand, because there's just going to continue to be more and better technology to do this type of thing. So at some point, you have to draw a line in the sand around that and just say, like, we're not going to continue to erode rights in the short-term gain of some public safety, potentially, because the data's not really there either. Anyways, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Kim Hart.
Good evening, Mayor and Longmont City Council members. My name is Kim Hart. I'm a resident of Longmont, and I'm here to speak about Flock on behalf of my partner, who is currently in a meeting of the Board of Directors of the ACLU Colorado and could not make it tonight. While there are numerous concerns with Flock as a company, along with potential for bad actors to gain access to this data, there are also overarching concerns about surveillance, especially as technology advances, making intense surveillance easier and cheaper. Flock markets their cameras as automatic license plate readers. However, they are much more than that. They claim their AI models can identify cars based on bumper stickers, dents, and other identifying marks, even when a license plate isn't visible. This technology is not limited to cars. An AI model can easily be changed, allowing it to identify different things in the same data without us even knowing about it. Their own marketing uses an example of tracking a man in an orange hat, for example. Additionally, Flock, with their large network of cameras, can track someone's movements across the United States over a long period of time. The Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld that the Fourth Amendment establishes a reasonable expectation of privacy. This right to privacy has been determined by the court to extend to, quote, a reasonable expectation of privacy in the whole of their physical movements. The court unanimously found in United States v. Jones that attaching a GPS monitor to a car for 28 days constituted a search and therefore required a warrant. Now, Flock as a company seems to be aiming for this same level of surveillance on all vehicles, easily accessible to departments that contract with them, without the oversight of needing a warrant or establishing probable cause. While bypassing this right to privacy may make solving some crimes easier for the police, it's important to remember that we don't have rights only as long as they are convenient. If that's the case, they are not rights at all. We have rights that limit the government's power, and as citizens, it's important to protect our rights, because they are a lot harder to get back if we give them away. Given this, the city should not renew its contract with Flock and should have the cameras removed. Importantly, the city should also establish a civilian oversight board to supervise the deployment of similar surveillance technology in the city. This technology is not going away, and it's only going to become more accessible, and regulation is necessary to ensure that it is not used in a harmful way. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Bernhardt.
Hello, I'm Todd Bernhard. I live at 815 6th Avenue. I am a resident here in Longmont and have been here for 5 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about ending the city's contract with Flock. The community members here have made my points better than I can. I'll just say, I don't know if privacy is a right, but it is my preference. The world is full of bullies, and privacy is a tool that the less powerful can use to maintain their autonomy and security. To pierce this privacy should require the consent of the surveilled or a specific legal warrant. Flock systems are deployed with neither. Privacy is disappearing in our connected world, and in the big picture, this might be a losing battle. But you have a choice to change things here in Longmont. Please use security systems that are specific and active only when needed, not systems that collect data generally and passively. And please commit that any future surveillance technology will require public debate and consent before implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Alred.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Hi, my name is Chris Allred, 10-year resident of Longmont, and I'd like to say welcome, Mayor and new council members. I'm here tonight as in solidarity with others in the community to ask that you please not renew the Flock camera contract and please dismantle the current infrastructure of cameras that's in place. I'm really impressed by the turnout tonight. I think it's a really strong majority and a very clear message from the community that we do not want more surveillance infrastructure or AI infrastructure, and I think it's become very apparent the injustices from that kind of infrastructure. People have provided a lot of information here tonight. I'm really learning a lot about all the problems with this technology. I think it's a very dangerous precedent to allow a private company to be storing people's personal information and then able to sell that information. It's anti-democratic, and it places people in the community at risk, especially people who are the most vulnerable to being targeted for immigration status or political advocacy. I'd like to remind members of the council and the community that we've seen a lot of injustice throughout this year, and for example, a lot of political prisoners and people targeted for their political advocacy, such as Mahmoud Khalil, a student at Columbia University who was targeted for his advocacy for a free Palestine, or Jeanette Vizgara, who is currently being held as a political prisoner at the ICE detention facility in Aurora for her activities standing up for immigrant rights. So we need to take a stand here right now and prevent further infrastructure of surveillance from being implemented in this town. And I think that will then empower other communities to stand up for their rights. Also, I'd just like to point out that AI infrastructure is very harmful to the environment and a mechanism which perpetuates systemic violence. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. Steve Altschuler.
Good evening. Steve Altschuler, 1555 Taylor Drive. In a nutshell, I'm also against the Flock, but so many people have said this so eloquently, I won't go into those details. But I did want to mention a couple things, and I know this is redundant, but public servants. That is what you guys are. You are servants of the public. You're not our dictators. You're not our rulers. We are here for public invited to be heard. The question is it just hearing or is it actually really listening to? And I say that because several years ago, there were hundreds of people that came out here against smart meters. And the city council at the time ignored them and did whatever they wanted to do. My question is, was there already a done deal with the smart meters before public was ever invited to be heard? And it was just a sham and we were all blown off? There's a deal right now with the old Walmart location where the builder's already getting at least $15 million in future property tax rebates. And we haven't even had the second hearing of public invited to be heard. And yet there's already a deal made. So my question is there already a deal made with Flock? Is this just all a big dog and pony show? Or are you actually listening? I see some heads nodding up and down when people speak. So I hope you're listening and you're open-minded. But this is very telling with the people behind me. Nobody wants the Flock. So it'd be interesting to see what you guys end up doing if you act as dictators or if you act as public servants and actually listen to the public and act accordingly. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And the last one on the list, Emily Stranova.
Good evening, council members and members of my community. My name is Emily Astronova. I urge the city of Longmont not to renew their contract with Flock and to remove them immediately if possible. I am here both in a professional capacity and a personal capacity, but my opinions are my own. So my career is I'm an offensive security tester for Google. I break into things for a living. I've been doing this for many years. As others have pointed out, there are existing critical security issues that have already been discovered in Flock cameras, but that's just fuel for the fire. If you believe that you can mitigate these risks while still keeping the Flock cameras, I'm here to tell you this is not the case. There's a saying in the cybersecurity field, there are companies who have been hacked, and there are companies who don't know it yet. It's unavoidable. Myself and other security professionals routinely compromise these products and companies. It's a matter of when and not a matter of if. The type of data that Flock collects is extremely dangerous. It has the ability to significantly aid threat actors who will eventually obtain this data. The best solution to this is simply not to collect the data at all. As I said earlier, I'm also here in a personal capacity. I've lived in Longmont for just over a year, but it's the first place that I've been able to call home. As a transgender individual, I just escaped the horrendous political climate that's currently plaguing the state of Texas. Longmont has become a sanctuary for me and other queer and trans folks like myself. The state of Texas has been accused of using systems like Flock to track people leaving Texas for things like reproductive health care and gender-affirming care. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, has already demanded that other states share their medical records of people seeking gender-affirming care. Systems like Flock are a dream come true for people like Ken Paxton. As a matter of fact, a feature that Flock advertises is the ability to share your city's data with other jurisdictions, even if Longmont opts out of this. Remember what I said about whether or not it's a matter of if and not when. Flock cameras have made me, once again, feel unsafe in my own community. I urge you to remove Flock cameras and not to renew your contract with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else on the list, I'm going to close public invited to be heard. And we are on to our, no special reports and presentations, and we're on to our study session item, but we have been going since 5:30, and we have an executive session afterwards. So would you all like to take a break? I think we would. So we're going to do a 5-minute break.
How are you? Good.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reconvene. Please take your seats if you're listening to the presentation. And I guess David Moore or Zach, who will be presenting. It says invite David Moore to review this item. So it's
Yes, ma'am, it will be a combination.
a combination of very good. So we're going to be doing an update on the progression of Longmont Department of Public Safety initiatives, including drones and cameras.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mayor, City Council members, good evening. My name is Zach Artis. I serve as the Public Safety Chief for the City of Longmont. I want to thank you for the opportunity tonight to come and provide an update on the progress of several key Longmont Police Department initiatives, including the use of drones, speed cameras, flock, and other technology. This evening, we want to provide a clear and practical update on several of these key initiatives that are either underway or in the process of being developed. These initiatives are part of a larger strategy to strengthen public safety while addressing staffing challenges, improving our delivery services, and maintaining transparency and accountability to the public we serve. Our focus tonight isn't just on what these tools are, but how we use them responsibly. We're also prepared to address tonight questions about governance, data use, access, and the measures in place that we use to protect civil liberties. With that, I'd like to take and turn it over to Chief Moore, as he'll talk through more of this presentation along with Assistant Chief Phil Petrowski.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. We're going to start out with this process we just are actually in the process of doing, but we are fairly through to the end, thankfully. Very arduous process of getting CLIA accredited. We will become one of 22 agencies in the state of Colorado, so in the top 6 to 7% that will be accredited, and in the top 1% in the nation. So it's a very rigorous and arduous process to attain that. We have gotten through the web-based assessment and the in-house assessment, and in March we will be traveling to the going in front of their board to answer questions and hopefully walk away with our accreditation. So hopefully they will come back to council and present that here in town for us. So we're pretty proud of that. A couple of the other initiatives we're working on in the process of looking into the IACP, which is the International Association of Chiefs of Police Trust Campaign, which focuses on leadership, hiring and retaining quality individuals, building trust with the community. And it is not a subset of accreditation, but it is very much in line with what we went through with accreditation. And then we'll be going through the 30 by 30 initiative, which is a pledge to hire 30% of our officers to be female by the year 2030. And we are currently at 25.2% at that mark. One of our initiatives in building trust and working with our community, being very forward-facing, is we are establishing many dashboards for the things we do, which are forward-facing. Our policies will be forward-facing so that the community can see them. We will have our traffic accidents, our crime data, use of force statistics. Power DMS is our policies, so that's what that statement is. The drone is the first responder, will also be forward-facing, which Chief Pietrowski will be addressing here in a little bit. And then the flock safety transparency portal as well. As you know, we have, as a city, engaged in the Vision Zero initiative, and our part of that is to decrease speed and traffic violations. So what we do, we wanted to be very transparent about the way we deploy our traffic monitoring, speed monitoring trailers. We have 2 of those. Those are all based on community complaints and known traffic areas where there's high occurrence of, and apparently we need to hit 17th and Airport a little bit more. but those are all driven by community complaints that we receive. We then go out with other technologies such as mobile speed signs, handheld devices, verify that there's actually an issue with speeding before we ever deploy the trailer. So we usually deploy the trailer for 2 to 3 weeks in any given location. And what we've seen over the approximate 6 months that we've had these out there, we've written over 4,000 citations through these through this technology, and we've seen a 2% decrease in speeding in those areas. So it is proving to be effective, and we are on the verge of getting our red light and our speed on green cameras installed. We're working with CDOT in that process, which hopefully will increase the safety at our most dangerous intersections, which is 66 in Maine and Ken Pratt in Maine. So those are some of the initiatives we're taking in concert with the Vision Zero initiative. So with that, I'm going to invite Assistant Chief Piotrowski to the podium.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk about a couple different things here. The first one is going to be our Drone as First Responder program. I'm going to refer to it as DFR. Before I get into that, I just want to give you a tiny historical perspective. We've been using drones in the city of Longmont for about 10 years. It's more on a incident basis when we have a critical incident. We have officers who get special training on how to deploy a drone. When we have something significant, if they're already on patrol or whatnot, they deploy there, put up the drone, and we have that ability to have that overall perspective. And then we have some cool little drones that we're able to put into houses, and those really keep everyone safer because we're no longer putting officers in harm's way. If there's someone who's refusing to come out of a house, we have a search warrant or an arrest warrant to enter and go get them. It makes it much safer to clear that house with a drone. Make sure they know that, whoever that is, they need to come out, that sort of thing. So we've been using drones really successfully for 10 years in the city of Longmont. And the drone as a first responder is kind of a natural progression with that. And really what we're talking about when we say drone as first responder is we're going to have a drone that's positioned centrally located within the city, and there's going to be an operator at the PD who's going to be listening real time to dispatch calls that come in to the dispatch center. As they're getting that information, they will launch the drone and they will send it to the direction of that incident. So a couple good examples that I can give you about this, like a structure fire. That drone will be up within seconds of getting that call, usually before their dispatch is even off the phone with the caller. We will have usually eyes on within seconds, if not just a minute or two, of the residence or whatever the location is. We'll be able to live stream that the video feed, essentially, right to the battalion chief, the lieutenant, whoever that is on duty. They're making decisions real time before they're even on scene about what that plan of attack is going to look like for that, what apparatus they need, that sort of thing. And similar like with the auto accident, right? We're going to be able to, before officers are even there, they're going to be able to determine what lanes of traffic need to be shut down. Do they need more than one ambulance, right? That sort of thing, and vice versa. If it came in as an injury accident, but they're already pulled out of traffic in a parking lot, people are walking around, we don't need a fire truck and police units running emergent through the city. We can slow them down and give them that accurate information. And obviously, we'll still be using it for critical incidents. If there's a robbery at 7-Eleven, and we have the drone up, they see a vehicle leave the parking lot at a high rate of speed northbound. Obviously, we're going to be trying to get a license plate, maybe coordinate with responding officers to get a stop on that vehicle, that sort of thing. And almost more importantly, in some cases, is going to be the missing person use for this, right? We're going to be able to deploy it for, those at-risk missing persons that we have, Alzheimer's patients, that sort of thing, along with also suspect locations. And we're going to be able to provide much better coverage, use thermal imaging to help locate people, especially in open spaces, that sort of thing. This is going to be shared across divisions within the city. Not only is it police, fire, EMS, Office of Emergency Management. There's also uses for when we have a power line go down during a storm. We can provide that feed to LPC, and they can, make good assessments before linemen even get here on how they're going to respond to that, what equipment they need, that sort of thing. And as I said, obviously there's many things with this that are going to help us do our job better. The thermal imaging when we're trying to locate someone, setting up perimeters if we need to do that. There's even technology where they're starting to look at, is there a way that you are able to drop like an AED at someone's front porch if someone's in cardiac arrest before a fire truck or a police officer even get there. We're not quite there yet, but that's kind of that progression that we're going to see with this. You know, when we had the floods in 2013, we could have used this to a considerable level, trying to assess exactly how much flooding was occurring, and more importantly, if we need to rescue people from those areas. We had to put people up, including Harold, in a helicopter in less than good conditions, I would say, to get some of that information, and this is a good way for us to stay safe and get this in there. And one last thing, I know I'm talking quick because I know you guys, it's a long night here, but we have, there's a lot of non-emergent uses for this too, and we're already crunched for officers. You know, we are trying to do our best with the officers that we have, and when we can do things like check a traffic hazard before we even send an officer there to make sure it hasn't already been moved out of the road, or you know, kids at the park who are there after hours when they're not supposed to be, we can send this drone up, check, okay, yep, they're still here. There's, you know, there are 20 of them. They're up on the northeast part of the park. We can efficiently use those resources, and even maybe not even send officers if they've already moved on, or, you know, that's not an issue anymore. With anything that we're going to do, we want to be transparent. We want to give as much information as we reasonably can to the public and to you guys. And what we're going to be doing with this DFR program is there's going to be a dashboard. Those are kind of the colorful icons you see on the top there. It's going to record all the time, every time that we put this DFR up in the air, it's going to record the time it took to get to the call for service, what our average you know, how often we're getting there first with the DFR before we're getting there with fire or police or anything like that. Additionally, in the black square there, what that is actually the flight pattern of the drone itself. And that will, once the mission is complete with the drone, we will generate that up on the public-facing dashboard, so anybody can go on there, see why the drone was up, where it actually flew, how long it was up, what the call for service was that it was attached to. And that's just all part of that transparency that we're trying to build into this sort of project, so that we're able to accurately relay to everyone what we're doing with this drone and why we're doing it. Onto flock safety. You guys have heard a lot about flock safety here tonight. You know, obviously flock is most known for its license plate readers and the cameras that are associated with that. This is very much so Flock's biggest component to their business model. There are some other things that they assist us with, right? Not only is it just the license plate reader that we get, there is some analytics that allow us to find a car based off of like damage to the vehicle, you know, certain ski rack and make, model, colors, things like that sort of stuff, if the license plate isn't readily available. There is also a couple other things that they go into, such as, you know, there's a Flock OS, which is a software that kind of integrates some of these things into a more usable platform, and some other things like that. But by far and away, the LPR is their mainstay with what they deliver for services. Some things that I want to go over, and this is what as far as data security and privacy, and I want to be really clear about some of this, and I've quoted some things out of our contract, and I'm going to read them, and just to be clear, this is what we've signed up for with Flock. So 100% of our data is customer owned, and it will never be sold. And as it states in our contract, as between Flock and agency, all right, title, and interest in the agency data belong to and are retained solely by the agency. Flock does not own and shall not sell agency data. There's an automatic 30-day data deletion that happens. We need access to this when we're actively doing investigations, which 30 days is kind of that time frame that allows us some flexibility in case we didn't get accurate information on the forefront. We're still able to tie this back within a reasonable amount of time. We don't want data that's a year old. That isn't helpful for us. That's stale data. That's not something that we're going to be putting into, likely into some sort of probable cause statement for a search warrant or anything like that. And so that's a natural progression. As far as some of the technology that they're using and that some of the certifications and assessments that Flock has already. First and foremost, all the data that goes between the camera to a Flock server is encrypted. It meets the AES 256 standard, which is kind of the gold standard, I guess, for lack of a better term. This is used by Amazon, it's used by Google, it's used by the DoD, NCIC, CCIC. This is a standard that it's industry-wide. They've also, in the last year, had a couple different accreditations or assessments done that are really the industry standard for data security, and that's what you see with the iOS 27001 certification and the SOC 2 compliance. These are independent accreditations that they get as a company, along with mandating multi-factor authentication, which obviously strengthens the security a significant amount. Additionally, LE agencies, we control who we're sharing the data with. We go in and we can select, we can share it nationally, we can share it within the state, we can share it with just certain partners. It's truly up to us to share what we want and how we want to share it. Currently, we share with local law enforcement within the state of Colorado, and that is it. Flock has no access to personally identifiable information. And what I want to make clear with this is the information that we get with Flock is an image of the vehicle with a license plate. Personal identifying information such as registered owner, address that vehicle goes to, anything like that, an officer has to access a separate database, CCIC, NCIC, to get that information. Flock doesn't have that information. They have the vehicle and the license plate and the characteristics of that vehicle. That's the information that we get from Flock. These two databases aren't, they don't navigate between each other than a hot list, and that would be for like stolen vehicles or something like that, where there's a clear law enforcement nexus. And just the last point on here, I just want to stress again that there's no federal access or nationwide lookup of Longmont PD's Flock data that we generate.
Okay. Order, you guys. No comment from the audience. Before you go on to the next slide, yes. I wanted to throw this out because the data was a big concern. So I know. Oh, you can put on your, so can we answer some, or ask some questions from the other slide? Would that be helpful?
It's your council, Mayor,
yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
So if you can go back to the other slide,
yes.
Please, thank you. Go ahead, Council Member McCoy. And
thank you, Mayor Hidalgo-Ferrin. Just a couple things about that data share, sharing with other Colorado law enforcement agencies. I think that's some of the concern that we heard from the public tonight in regards to the issue of, we may be on the right trajectory in regards to being, aware of where our citizens are, but some of these other communities, may not, and that would be the concern that I have. That never was the case before until we had such discrepancy about how people were, what silo people were in, and that's a concern now, and that I know that shouldn't be the case, but it is, and I think that's where a lot of the community members are. Longmont might be doing things right, and not. But some of these others seem to be, just they drank the Kool-Aid and went right along, and so that's the concern I think that many of the community members are feeling right now.
Yeah, and honestly, that's fair. I understand that concern, right? You know, and what I can say, you know, there's been some incidents. There's one in Loveland that was clearly against state statute. They shouldn't have disclosed that information in the state of Colorado. On this next slide, I'm just going to move. I'll come back to it. It's prohibited for us to use any of this information for immigration enforcement, traffic enforcement, harassment or intimidation, or usage based solely on a protected class, i.e. race, sex, religion, or personal use. You know, I've worked for Longmont PD for almost 20 years now, and I take that really serious, state statute, right? Like that's a big deal. And that's a big misstep up in Loveland. They shouldn't have done that, and you know, I can't. You know, and you know, the human factor is kind of the factor that's always going to be a difficult factor with any technology, because if someone wants to use it the wrong way, they can, right? And we do a tremendous amount of work to vet our police officers and make sure that they're ethical people. But you know, you're right. I can't control necessarily what someone does in you know, in another jurisdiction, but I know too that they have to function under the same statutes and regulations that we have to, and very clearly they should not be doing that.
Okay. Next person, Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Herring. I have quite a few comments, but I'll reserve those so you can finish the presentation. But I'll offer just a few clarifying questions for now.
And feel free to get them all out now. I'm just going to plow through it.
I was going to ask the questions now, finish the presentation, and then make an informed comment. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get straight here is I think I'm hearing commendably, like, we have very strict rules and procedures. Some of those are dictated from the state. Some of those are internal here. But when we share data with other agencies, there is a greater risk. And that risk expands significantly because we are dependent on that human factor that you mentioned from other departments. And so it sounds like these might be our policies, but there is still that risk at the moment data leaves our community for certain investigative purposes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then when we were talking about the FLOC and CIC and NCIC standards, you said those platforms don't talk to each other except for during like hot incidents, I think.
Sorry. So when we have, so what comes from NCIC, CCIC is like stolen vehicle. Like if a vehicle license plate is registered as stolen in CCIC, that information will be pushed to FLOC, and then officers, if that vehicle goes past a camera, it will send up a notification to officers that this vehicle, which is stolen in CCIC, and then they can, you know, try to go to that area and try to find that vehicle.
So I'll just put some clarification on that. So it is, the information that FLOC collects is never run against the actual NCIC or CCIC, meaning that when he talks about a list, just imagine you wrote a list of names down on a piece of paper.
Like
That
public
list-
invited to be heard.
Correct. That list is then put into FLOC, and it cross-checks, as FLOC is reading a tag, it cross-checks that list of names. That's all it does. So it's never communicating directly with, so it's not, if I drove past it, it's not running my tag and then gathering all the information, date of birth, who owns the vehicle, insurance, lien holder. It's not doing that. It's collecting a list of names or a list of plates or a list of warrants, and it's doing that. So whether it's one of the other tag reader companies, it's doing the same thing. The hot list gets pushed out. So the state of Colorado pushes one out. There's one pushed out nationally, and then those are put in and updated on a regular basis so that when a car goes by, if it's on the hot list, it's stolen, or there's a warrant, it's updated. So
Gotcha.
to avoid someone being on a hot list being there for 6 or 8 months, right? Because those cars are usually recovered within time.
Sure, you're saying that's a different functional list than just the general data that our cameras collect.
Yeah.
Or our license plate readers.
Correct. All the license plate reader collects is a picture of the car, as Phil has said. The hot list is simply just imagine writing a list of names down, and I hand it to you. And then every time somebody walks in, you're just looking to see if it matches that.
Sure. What did we do on this from a public safety, from a policing standpoint, from a law enforcement standpoint before FLOC?
So what would usually happen is an officer.
We were still tracking down these types of situations, right?
Yes, and it was more engaged with like a traffic stop. So as soon as an officer enters a light, so normal officer running down the street, they see a moving violation, so they're going to make a stop. Usually, most officers will be typing that license plate in pretty quickly, and immediately, if that is a stolen vehicle, they'll get an alert in CCIC that that's a stolen vehicle. Obviously, that changes the dynamics of that contact because we know stolen vehicles, there's more risk. Usually, have find a lot of weapons in stolen vehicles, that sort of thing. So that's the normal. That's how I grew up with it, right? You do a traffic stop, you're entering that plate. What Flock is doing is, again, there's a list of, a couple times a day, daily, they update the hot sheet, and it will be a list of license plates that are reported stolen, of license plates that are associated with someone with warrants, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And just to be clear, they're not getting the CCIC information. It's just making an alert that this is a stolen vehicle in CCIC, and the officer has to go to CCIC to get further information.
And it is the agency's responsibility to verify that the information that Flock is saying this vehicle is stolen or tag is stolen is verified through NCIC. So it is still the burden still falls on the agency that if, for example, your vehicle got flagged, I got behind you, I still have to verify on NCIC that the vehicle is stolen. If it's not, then there's an error on the system, meaning it didn't get taken out, it got entered incorrectly. And so that also happens on NCIC at times too. So that's why the verification has to occur.
And that's why, in any of this technology that we're talking about, the human factor is important, right? Because you need to have that vetting ability, right? And that second look at it and not just acting on the information at face value.
Right, and I think that human factor goes both ways,
It
right?
does,
It goes
yeah.
from a verifiability standpoint
Right.
in a positive direction, and it also goes to a risk standpoint.
It does.
If misused or not properly, whether there's malintent or not, whether it's misused in some way.
And that's with any. Sorry, I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah,
to interrupt.
this is a tool,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
and it's a tool that can be used for productive purposes and less productive purposes, or for surveillance purposes in an unproductive way. But it's also a tool that what it sounds like, and I don't think that you have disagreed with this in any way. It's a tool that is also has elements well beyond our control. And just to distinguish this, when you were giving the DFR presentation before, it sounds like the drone's, again, a tool, right? And the data we get from the drone program, that comes back to our department, right? Is that like, who has control over the data that we collect from that when we're doing active surveillance with that?
Well, I guess it depends to an extent. In the case of the drone that we're looking at, that's a Flock drone that we're going to be using on that.
The drones that we've previously been using?
No, the drones that we have are stored natively within our evidence system.
That's what we currently use?
Yes. So these aren't on any other system. They get uploaded to Axon. The DFR drone specifically is a Flock product.
Right, and so those drones, the current ones that we have,
yes,
are managed. There's more autonomy that we have over those systems and over the data that we collect from that. Correct?
Yes, it goes strictly. It goes from an SD card on the drone uploaded to our digital evidence platform in the cloud.
So I want you to understand,
Yep.
our body cameras and drones that Phil is talking about, they're all uploaded to Axon,
Sure.
evidence.com. So it's not stored on-prem or in-house because there's such a massive amount of data that is stored. And so again, the question is, yes, we have that data, we control it. Again, we would make the argument that we control the data. Now, we can restrict, as Phil said, who has access to that data. We don't have to allow Colorado agencies to see it. We can take that piece off and allow just us to be able to review that, meaning that only Longmont.
You're saying that with Axon, with Flock, with both?
With Flock, sorry. With Flock, we don't have to share it with Colorado. We did that because we knew that crimes occur in regional areas, meaning City of Boulder oftentimes is dealing with the same thing that we're dealing with. And so being able to share information is critically important in investigations when we're trying to catch individuals. And so, but we have the ability to eliminate sharing that data, that LPR information, with any other agency within the state of Colorado and just house it for the city of Longmont.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back in a bit.
So, Councilmember Marcin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just how many more slides do you have? I just want to make sure we can get through the presentation because I think we all have questions.
I have one, and I think we have 2 or 3 more, and Chief Moore has a couple other stories that involve.
Are they related to Flock? Because I
Yes.
know a lot of these.
Directly related
Okay.
to Flock, yeah.
So I want to give you the opportunity to get the information out there, both for our benefit and for the public benefit. I've got a lot, and I don't want to hold the floor for too long, so I want to give you the opportunity.
I can move quickly through this.
That would be
this
great.
last
Thank you.
bit here. So what I want to be clear about is that, again, transparency and accountability is something that it's just part of our nature at Longmont PD, and we're going to continue to do that regardless of any products that we use. We're going to have, with the Flock specifically, we have permanent audit logs, which track every officer and the search criteria that they use and how they're accessing any of the images that are retrieved from the Flock cameras. There's a transparency portal that also outlines, our usage with Flock, how many vehicles are being, imaged, that sort of thing, how many we're actually using in criminal investigations, along with the prohibited uses clearly laid out there. And I just want to reiterate that Flock is an investigative tool. Our officers are the ones that make the final decisions with this, with the information, the data that they receive from this tool. There's good police. There's no workaround for good police work. It's just that simple. This is a tool. It provides us leads. It provides us information. We have to do our job, and we have to do it at the level that we do to give the community the results that they want. That's it for me. I think Dave's up next.
So we wanted to show some of the statistics we had that we could tie back to our use of the Flock system over the last couple of years. This is 114 weeks of information. You can see that we have a total of what I classified as Flock assists, where Flock was directly related to being able to provide an investigative lead that we could follow up on. And out of those 120 assists, we made 89 arrests. This is a breakdown of those calls. Some of them are multiple, so you might have a DV that had a kidnapping. That would end up as 2 numbers on this list. So don't look at this and say there's 178 here, but only 120 in the last one. There are multiple things. Crimes are multifaceted. Like to point out, we have 12 attempted homicide or shots calls where we used Flock to help us investigate those incidents. We've located 11 missing persons with the use of Flock, and we've recovered 9 guns from criminals that were directly related to a Flock assist. With those numbers, I wanted to highlight just a few different types of calls. We had a robbery at a local business where all we had was a description of a vehicle. The person getting robbed at gunpoint did not get a license plate, and we were able to locate that vehicle, find the license plate, do the investigative work to discover through NCIC, CCIC, which is really where your personal information is stored, to locate the residence for this individual, and we just about beat him to his house and made arrest and recovered the gun and other evidence of the crime. We had a homicide in southwest Longmont that was a drug-related deal, and I believe that this would have been very difficult to solve if it weren't for getting the information from Flock. Provided that investigative lead that we were able to follow up on and do what we do, and we made 2 arrests on that one. We had a missing person where a spouse called in, a wife called in, said her husband was missing, had what I would classify as dementia-related indicia for mental health issues. A neighboring jurisdiction was able to find that vehicle through the use of Flock and return that husband to his home. And he described him as basically not knowing where he was and having difficulty knowing where he was going. So That was a missing person success story. We had a DV-related attempted homicide where Flock allowed us to locate the direction of the vehicle. The male was still armed, had made threats of suicide by cop, and we were able to have him in custody within about 30 minutes of that incident and take him away as a danger to our community at large. And then we had one just recently where Flock allowed us to identify an adult who had sold a gun to a minor, and that gun ended up being recovered in one of our schools here in town. That within minutes of getting that investigative lead, we were able to get that gun out of the school. So those are just some a varied view of the numbers you're seeing. But so far, it's been very successful as a tool for our investigative work. So with that, that is the final slide, and now we're open for questions.
Now we can come back to questions. Okay. Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the information and the work that public safety has done to, I think, listen to the questions from the community. I'm curious, is there a reason that DFR, the drone as first responder, being a Flock product, was not explicitly mentioned in either the console comm or the presentation? Is there a reason that we didn't explain that to the public as part of the presentation, outside of the questioning that just occurred a little bit ago? I'm just curious about the thinking.
So just for clarification,
Yeah.
We've had this planned, this presentation planned long before the Flock issues arose.
Yeah.
And this was meant to be a status of the department, what
Yeah.
direction we're heading, and that transparency piece that we're working on.
Appreciate
And so that is why it wasn't Flock coming into tonight, and we realized through questions and the community that we needed to address Flock, so that would be why that wasn't part of that.
I appreciate that, Chief, and certainly appreciate the information early on in the presentation about the great work LPD continues to do. In our agreements with Flock, if there's a maintenance issue with a camera specifically, or the system generally, how do we handle those issues? So do we handle those issues and go out and fix them, or does Flock?
So Flock is responsible for fixing the cameras.
Yep.
If there's any kind of tampering, they would identify that and let us know that there was something going on. Just for clarification, our Flock cameras sit an average of 15 feet up on a pole.
Got it.
So it wouldn't be the easiest thing to get up and personally hack. Another thing for clarification is those cameras only hold those pictures of the vehicles. For one, we purposefully made our cameras face the rear of the vehicle so it wouldn't capture the driver of the vehicle. So we take a picture of the rear of the vehicle and the license plate. Those license plates are uploaded from that camera to the Flock database, anywhere from seconds to 7 days. So if someone were to compromise one of the cameras in the way that's mentioned online, they would get 7 days maximum worth of pictures of cars that have gone through that area. All of our Flock systems that we're responsible for are on main thoroughfares in the city. We don't put them in residential areas. So we're trying to be responsible on where we put them, on the angle of the vehicle we take the picture of, and respecting those privacy issues and concerns.
I appreciate that. But just, I want to make sure I'm clear because I'm new and kind of dumb. The city then technically owns the data, right? But we're subject to Flock's maintenance and contract terms, right? So we own the data that exists on those servers, but Flock is the responsible party for technical controls and contract terms, right? If they're the ones that have to come out and fix the camera, theoretically we own the data that's stored, but they are the ones that are actually responsible for fixing it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's an accurate statement, yeah.
Okay. And I just want to be really clear for the public. Can you clarify whether there are any direct or indirect federal agencies, including ICE, that could access Longmont's Flock data with or without our knowledge or permission? And then second part of that question is, can you say with confidence that ICE specifically has never accessed our Flock data?
So it's quite a few questions. So let me work through that. So in June, when the information got brought up about Loveland allowing access to, I think it was ATF. It wasn't ICE, I think it was ATF. We ran an audit of who had accessed our systems. And so when we ran that audit at that time, no federal agency had access to that. We then restricted our access to just Colorado agencies because they all have to abide by the same law. Now, to sit here and tell you that another agency won't break the law, it's like me telling you that, you won't go home tonight and speed. I can't determine what you will do with that data. But there is state law, there are policies and regulations of how that data can be used and who can access it. And so under Colorado law, local agencies are not allowed to share that information in immigration for immigration purposes. And so I can't tell you that if the FBI is working a child kidnapping case and they called an agency and said, hey, we're looking for this vehicle, do you have it? That is permissible. What is not permissible is sharing that information with immigration for immigration purposes. Okay. So there are federal partners that we do work with on a regular basis for investigations that because there are people in our community. I believe there was just a press release done the other day, reference to the FBI arresting an individual in our community for, I think it was reference to children and child porn and potentially human trafficking. So we do work with our federal partners to get those types of individuals out of our community, but we are legally not allowed. And what made this an issue in Loveland is I believe they had typed next to it something that was referenced to some type of immigration. So some word, some language. But you are not allowed under Colorado law to share any information related to immigration enforcement. And so that is the issue. So when you ask is unequivocally, would we never work with our federal partners? That's not true. We would work with our federal partners just as if they called us and said, hey, could you pull this report for me that you took on such and such reference to? But it would have to be something other than immigration enforcement.
Okay.
So yes and no.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. Just last question, and then I may have a quick comment, but how many, just for clarity, how many, sorry, I got to find it. How many LPD personnel currently have login access to Flock, and how are roles and permissions assigned? I'm thinking about the cases we've heard of bad actors within departments, some of those horror stories that we heard tonight and that I think a lot of us have heard in preparation for tonight. How many people have access to the system, and how are those, what determines who gets that access?
So every one of our commissioned officers would have access. Not everyone uses it regularly. The three people sitting here don't do investigative work, so it's mainly focused on those folks that are doing the investigative work. But every one of our commissioned officers have access, and we have a couple of non-commissioned folks that do some work for us as well. Our community service officers and our traffic community service officers have access. What I do want to make clear about access to personal information is we have been using CCIC and NCIC for decades, and it has much more personal information. In fact, again, Flock has a picture of your license plate in your car. NCIC, CCIC has much more than that. And we've used that responsibly, and that can be misused by any officer in the nation, just as Flock can be misused. But we've shown over the course of for Longmont and for many other police agencies, we know there are bad police officers out there, and we probably hate them worse than anyone in the community. Yeah. But the vast majority of officers are responsible and have had access to your personal information for much longer than Flock's ever been around. So
I appreciate that. And I want to be really, really clear that my intent both with questions here and is not to question the good faith of LPD or the public service and public safety department. I mean, I think I'm probably the only member of this council that did ride-alongs when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old on graveyard shift with my dad, right? Like, so the work you all do is exceptional, and I want to be really clear about that. My concern here is about long-term governance, long-term privacy, security implications that we've talked about with this tech, and whether or not we've built the kind of oversight structure, or whether or not it's even possible to build the kind of oversight structure to rein in this technology. as leadership and technology changes, both from our work and from Flock. And I believe personally that it is really important for this council to give clear direction now rather than later. And I also believe that if this winds up not getting there, that this is a conversation that our residents need to have, that we need to have for our residents. And so I'm going to make a motion.
Hold on, so this is a study session?
I can make a motion for direction, correct? And I
No.
checked on this with staff earlier.
You did? Okay, so.
I can make a
Please
motion
correct.
for direction.
For direction, okay.
Not to pass law, but just for
Not
direction.
to pass for, okay.
Yep, not to pass law, but just direction
Sounds
for.
good. And you know what, I did, so thank you so much for timing this. I wanted to clarify. So according to our rules of procedure, so there is nothing that stipulates that each council member is only given 5 minutes. I see a lot of mics up.
Yeah.
But according to rules of procedure, and this is how I want to do things moving forward, is I want to
appreciate that.
give that time for a robust discussion that sometimes can't happen within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I am going to adhere to our rules of procedure where we give everyone who hasn't spoken first. So even though I see 2 names on the queue that have already spoken, I do want to give opportunity for other
That's great.
council members
Absolutely.
to speak before I give you back the floor. So that is the only change I'm going to make. So thank you so much for doing that.
And
But that's not necessary. Yeah, so that's
appreciate that,
just
Mayor.
moving forward. I wanted to make that clear for everyone on council as we start delving into these conversations. So I'm going to go ahead and give that back to you.
I appreciate that, Mayor, and I know I can be long-winded, so I will do my bestest to stay within the 5 minutes that I know is in our rules. But I do want to.
It's not in our rules.
Oh, it's not in our. Okay,
in our
well, I think maybe it should be.
But feel
Convention-
free to not be long-winded.
Yes. But I am going to go ahead and make a motion because I think, and this is a motion for direction, and I'm going to move that we direct the city manager to work with city staff, including the Department of Public Safety, to terminate or non-renew all current contracts with Flock Group Incorporated, decline any expansion of Flock infrastructure, and remove all existing Flock Group infrastructure from the city of Longmont, including cameras, software access, cloud storage, and associated hardware by March 31st, 2026, in accordance with all contract terms and applicable laws, with any necessary exceptions for active investigations or legal obligations. And I just sent that over to the clerk and city manager.
Perfect. Did you get all that, Michelle? Okay, and then, so we do have an active motion. Is there a second? Okay, so the motion is to direct staff to CM to work with, so city manager and city manager, to work with staff and public safety to terminate or non-renew Flock contract, including cameras, et cetera, by March 31st, 2026. That was moved by, motion was made by Councilmember Marcin, seconded by Councilmember Popkin. Is there any discussion on this open motion? So I'm going to go ahead and were you wanting to speak on, but for the other, for this particular motion or for the presentation? Okay, so so I'm going to have you all pop out, pop back, pop out, yeah. And then if you want to speak to this motion, go ahead and put on your mics, and I'll start working my way down. So Councilmember Christ? And thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And when you say speak to this motion, could that also include some questions to our public safety individuals? That relates to this?
rules, yes.
Yes. So we have new counselors, and what I want to address my question to is why it's necessary to use technology to expand your capabilities, and why we find ourselves in this situation, because we know we don't have as many police officers on the street as we would like to have, and so we need an assist. And just if you could explain why particularly we decided that there were enough deaths and serious injury through speeding and red light, blowing through red lights to warrant having cameras to record people's license plates, if you could.
Councilmember, I'll just share my thoughts, and then Chief Moore certainly can share his. You know, in a day and age, we've mentioned that, you know, staffing is always an issue for us. And the question is, how do we leverage technology in a responsible way in order to meet the needs and expectations of the community? You were presented, a lot of members on this council, just a few months ago with a study for the number of police officers and firefighters that we need today in a 5-year plan. And so we recognize that there is a monetary challenge with the city to fund an additional 60 positions across public safety to meet the needs of the community. And so we are strapped with our individuals and the cases that we have, the expectations that court has, the expectations that district attorneys has, and the public has when we take a case to court. And so we are looking for ways to use innovative technology in order to do those things, but along to be responsible and transparent with our community. And so in this particular case, Flock, what it allows is a simple tool for us to help a part of an investigation. I think we shared some numbers with you on a previous email to council. And in that email, we discussed that, yes, while we may have scanned 64 million tags, I think is what the number was over a year's period, we don't have access to that many tags. We only have 30 days worth of information. As Assistant Chief Petrowski had said, it is about taking the information we have at the moment in the time to investigate the case at the moment in the time. 6 months does not help us to go back and look at tags or try it. We also don't have the capability and won't to sit there and watch 80 or 64 million people drive by a camera. We just don't have the capability, and it's not necessary for us to do that. What is necessary for us, as Chief Moore had shared, and what he left out of that one story was, as a strange husband came up and shot his wife in the car, there was also 2 small children in that vehicle. And within a matter of minutes, we had identified that vehicle, and we had that individual in custody. And we had Boulder County and Sheriff, as the individual fled towards Lyons, we had him in custody in a matter of minutes. And so what is key for us is not to abuse it and not to misrepresent or misuse what we have as an organization. It is to use to keep the community safe. And while that is just one story of the success that we've had with Flock, we do recognize the concerns about the people that showed up today and about what that looks like. And we are all about trying to be transparent with the community because we feel this is a tool. There's also been the case that was brought up in Aurora or one of the metro Denver areas where the individual was arrested. I watched that news story. Unfortunately, it is a tool. If you are making an arrest solely based on a picture of a car, you are not doing your job or doing your community any favors when it comes to investigating cases and bringing justice to the victims that they exist. And so again, we have internal policies that exist. We have laws and expectations that we have in place to ensure that we don't misuse this data. And so that is the key for us. We have been transparent. We try to be transparent. We try to communicate with the public. So yes, it will be a hit for us. And what I will challenge this council with, if you take it away, I need officers. I need people and I need funding for those things. If you're going to take this tool away that cuts out hours and hours of manpower, hundreds of hours of manpower for us, then I need council to provide the man or the officers that we need in order to meet the needs of this community. And so I would challenge you with that. Again, this is totally council's decision in working with the community, but I can tell you that the community that we serve, not only the folks in this room, but the ones that are either online or outside, have a certain expectation for public safety. And so we are trying to meet those needs the best way that we can and be fiscally responsible. But I will tell you, a contract with Flock of $50,000 a year is a lot cheaper than $150,000 for one police officer. And so that is what we're trying to utilize because we understand that city has been strapped and cities across the country are strapped. But we also understand as Longmont grows, there are challenges that will arise. So that was, to try to answer your question, Councilman Chris, that is why we asked for it, that's why we hope to use it, and that's why we try to use it responsibly, is for those types of things.
Well, thank you, Chief. I have an add-on to that. None of us want to live in a Big Brother world, but one of the things the city of Longmont has been very good with is, you know, our next light, our LPC, our power company. We've been very, what should I say, very conscientious with our services to our citizens. Is there any way that we can own more of this to where we aren't as exposed to another company? I know we don't create our own cameras at this time, but is there a way where we can take more ownership of the equipment and the process?
It's certainly something we can explore. I mean, we just got back from IACP in Denver just a few months ago, which is where every vendor across the country shows up and does stuff and brings whatever product, whatever new thing is out on the market, right? I don't know of a way to purchase the software independently, to store it here and keep it here. If there was a way, I'd be happy to say, yes, we can do X, Y, and Z. We're happy to continue to look for alternatives, but right now, most of the technology that is created by companies, again, for profit, whether it's a body camera, whether it's a computer that we use in the car, whether it's Ford, the vehicles we buy from, they're all created for this. And so there isn't a way that I'm aware of, and I'll certainly defer to the chief and the assistant chief, that we can own this camera and then also create the own software that we store and keep ourselves. And unfortunately, we're at the mercy of the vendor, similar to our body cameras. We are limited from a select number of vendors that we can use for body cameras, but as you know, we're mandated by the state to have body cameras. And equip those with every officer. And so I don't know that I have a solution for you at this moment in time. You know, when you talk about, again, we're happy to restrict it just to the city of Longmont because we think it's a valuable tool. If we're concerned about sharing with what other agencies do, then we're happy to turn it off to other agencies. We just need it for those investigative purposes of when we need to try to find, again, something that's happened in our community, what to look for. But again, no ma'am, I'm not aware of any other company where we can go buy this and house it in-house and have it on our own.
At this time.
At this time, correct.
Yeah. And that is something that you could continue to research.
That is always something that we continue to look at and evaluate whether we're using the technology appropriately or whether we're using it efficiently or effectively, or if there's something else better out there. I mean, I think we find ourselves a lot of times, we just get stuck because we're comfortable using a piece of software when we find out there's a better, more efficient, and more secure way to use things and to be more transparent with the community. So we're always looking at what's next and what's around the corner, but we're not always willing to jeopardize the integrity of our agency nor the privacy of our citizens to go with whatever's out on the market.
Okay, very good. So based on those answers, I would not be in favor of this motion because I think we're doing the best we can right now, and there are lives at stake, and this has made a big difference to our public safety initiative. And kudos, by the way, of getting your CLIA accreditation, yeah, especially with as short-staffed as you are. So,
okay.
Yeah, let's consider our action here.
So, okay, and then, thank you. Before I pass it on down that way, you know, we had listened to a public safety update, and it was during the budget, where we were at numbers FTE from 20 years, almost 30 years ago. So we have that same number of FTE that are out there with the public. And I know, you know, having been on here, you know, you've been on before, I've been here since 2019, and the thousands of emails and calls, and, you know, and I went to that neighborhood when the car went through the garage and seeing how, you know, there has been an overwhelming number of people who are saying, we need more police, we need something done, we're concerned about our safety. There was an uptick of gang activity. You know, I can only go around with my rake, because I did chase a gang member down the street with a rake once. So it's a good story, but I can only do that so many times. But so, you know, so we're looking for these tools. One of the questions that I did ask early on when we were looking at the contract was having that assurance that we're not sharing data with ICE. You know, I've done several years of DACA clinician, know your rights trainings, you know, looking at all those. So yes, I'm very cognizant of the rights of our immigrants in this community. And so, you know, one of the concerns that I have always been that's been raised with me is looking at, well, if the state changes their policy, then what happens with us? Do we still have that ownership and right to not share that information with other agencies? So that's, you know, where can we, how much power do we really have?
Yes, ma'am, and I can't give you legal advice because I'm not a
Yeah,
lawyer,
yeah.
but what I can tell you is that there's oftentimes that you can, we did that, I think, during some gun legislation, right, that came out. So there are things that council can direct staff to, you know, or suggest that staff do as far as that. So that's why I brought up the fact is if council looks and says we don't want, you know, we want to give direction to the city manager not to share this information outside the city of Longmont, that's something we certainly can do, the council can give direction on. They certainly can, again, as council member has made, to withdraw and remove and break contract with Flock. Council can certainly do that also. So council does have the ability to give direction to the city manager on how to tailor certain things, and in particular with Flock, hey, we want to do this versus, I know the state says this, but we want to be more restrictive to certain things, right? There's certain things that the state precedes local jurisdiction on that you can't, but in this case, you can dictate because there's no existing state law other than we can't share personal information of any sort, whether it's a police report, pictures, video surveillance, or any of those types of things with ICE.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to? Yes, please.
Can I jump in just really quick on the budget question? You're correct in that staffing in the police department has been difficult. It is directly related to sales and use tax. And so prior to they initiated a sales and use tax, then the collapse of 2008 occurred. And so what happened is the numbers went back. We then started catching up with the numbers, got ahead, and I just want to be clear for the public. Then the financial issues started coming in and creating headwinds recently where we had to make adjustments. And so the staffing issue that they have is directly related to the revenue generated here, specifically in the public safety sales tax. And if you recall in this budget, we actually had to take the more expensive police positions and shift them into the general fund and move the less expensive police positions into the public safety fund so we wouldn't have any further reductions in staffing. So I just wanted to get that out as clarity in terms of what we're dealing with. And it's not unique to Longmont.
Yeah.
It's every community in Colorado. It's every community in the nation, I would argue, in terms of the fiscal crisis that we've been in.
Okay. And so, I would ask as we're entertaining, making changes or non-renewal, what are solutions? What are solutions we can bring to the table? Because we don't have it in our budget to hire the necessary officers to sit on all these high corners and wait for things to happen and be physical in those spaces. So what are some options that we can do to help ensure public safety? And that's something I wanted, not just get rid, but also what can we do?
I would like to clarify something that Phil got into. So on the drone piece, so remember tonight was supposed to be about drones. And then the question was, well, why is it a Flock drone? It is a combination of expense and technology, because the drones that they're talking about in this case, we didn't go in the details, can fly at 400 feet without someone having line of sight on it. They have line of sight actually from the command center. That requires a radar that interfaces with the FAA radar system. And so when you look at how they're making their decisions, it really is about balancing all of these other issues we're getting into. And so to the point is, if council makes this motion, we're going to have to come back because we still see utility in the drones. We have to find a different company that actually has the radar system and everything else that you need so that you can actually carry out what they're trying to do. So they also get caught in this, and so I want to kind of bifurcate this to say, well, why did they look at this? Well, it's because of those radar systems and the other piece on the drone side.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to
go ahead.
The reason that there's another vendor on the market, and their drones do not stay up as long, and when we evaluated what is on the market, this gives us a 3-mile radius for one drone where we would have had to buy multiple drones to cover the city. And so again, looking at cost, understanding what budgetary issues there exist, to Mr. Dominguez's point, and then also the radar piece that we need, along with clearance from FAA in order to be able to operate this without line of sight. And so those were critical for us when we were making decisions and evaluating different companies on which device or which drone to go with at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of questions here in regards to block cameras. Is the accreditation, is there any, is that hinging on the flock cameras being part of that? we don't want that's not going to have any effect. Okay, there's the answer to that one. Okay.
Sorry, I was confusing accreditations there with the flock ones versus our accreditation. No,
Your accreditation.
The flock does not have any bearing on our accreditation. That's about policies and best practices, national standards. It's more about our operations, not about our technology.
Okay, and then the next one, so people know the difference, because you showed a camera on a trailer, and is that the trailer that they've been using at Mountain View? And so that's not Flock.
That's correct. That's a company called Census Gatso that produces that trailer, but essentially the technology is the same. They capture the vehicle and the license plate. That information is processed at an off-site company that we contract with to take care of the ticketing portion of that, and to make sure that there was a violation. It's not just an automatic ticket. There's a person on their side and a person on our side that physically look at those images to assure that there was a violation. But the same kind of process happens. That data is transmitted using the AES 256 encryption that is the same as Flock, and it's transferred off-site. And then it's put on a website that we access and do our analysis.
Okay, and there's two of those in the community, and you're moving them around, because I noticed
That's
the one
correct.
on Mountain View is moved.
Yeah, so approximately every 2 to 3 weeks, so those trailers need to be charged. So we will leave them in a place until we see an effective drop in that enforcement piece. And then we'll go to the next area where we have community complaints about speeding, and we'll reestablish the trailer there. So you will see those moving around town.
And so the 15 areas, the Flock was, are different strategic areas around town on big light, high up on the light pole.
Correct. They're all approximately 15 feet in the air, and they are on main thoroughfares within the city.
Okay. And then this motion would only be the beginning of this. It would have to come back for first and second reading.
No, this one's. So this contract is actually, on the contracting side, you may recall from the LPM, is the only contract that council acts on is the LPM contract. We act on the other contract, so this motion would actually initiate us beginning the process to terminate the contract. So this would not come back to council. This
Okay.
would be council's direction to me.
Okay.
And I do want to clarify, council member, that yes, you could make the motion, approve it, and remove the 15 flock cameras. There's still additional 7 flock cameras that are privately owned within the city that we could not do anything with. And so if a business added flock cameras to their private property, there's nothing that the city could do to have those removed. So just understand that, yes, the 15 cameras that the city maintains could be removed, but the 7 that currently exist, or potential more that may come up, would not be under this contract or
So
under their own
how do
independent.
we have any recourse with those?
You don't.
And
They
so
have
whatever decisions we make here will not have any bearing or effect on those.
Correct, only on the 15 that the city
And so
has
if
contracted.
we even decide to not do sharing of information with another law enforcement agency in another community, like let's say Loveland, those could be, they're still out there.
Those could still be shared with other agencies outside the city of Longmont. So how it works is that a private camera can be shared with law enforcement, but law enforcement can't share its images with private cameras. So if Home Depot or whoever, Target, Walmart, whoever has these, is still able to allow other agencies outside the jurisdiction of Longmont to have access to these.
Would it have been better to have a motion that said that they had to get our permission?
So I can't dictate what a private company does on their private property with surveillance.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilmember Prieto.
So first and foremost, I want to thank you for your service. And I also recognize the work that you folks do day in and day out and your team. and the significant challenges that are going to come about if we remove the cameras. I just have some questions. How long, so Councilmember Marsing proposed March as a date by, but I understand that the police department, there's so many folks and so many officers who work within the department, and you folks have created process and procedure around what to do in certain instances, how to go about them, and I'm not sure and confident that the March deadline gives our police officers enough time to create new processes and procedures, to just go about business and create an alternate motive and way to conduct just investigations, so on and so forth. So in the event we made this motion, what would you say that the public safety would need as far as an amount of time to set something else in place or look at alternative modes of, other technologies, et cetera?
Thank you for the question, council member. I think what it is it's simply a tool. If you remove the tool is gone. There are other companies out there that do the same thing, but if the issue and concern is about documenting the number of vehicles that go by and collapsing this data, then it won't matter what company we pick or choose because the data is still available. And so again, we will just go back to the way that we do things. And unfortunately, to be very transparent, there is an issue where we may not very well solve a crime. I mean, that happens, right? We don't solve crimes now, right? Flock doesn't solve every crime that we have in the city of Longmont. It's just simply one tool out of many that we use to try to solve a crime. And so the more tools we have, the better cases that we make, and the more opportunities we have to catch individuals and hold them accountable for their actions. And so at the end of the day, whether you gave us till March or you gave us till March of 2027, it's not going to change the fact that we still have to overcome and adapt, right? We do the same thing it seems like about every year when the state legislators decide to pass some kind of law or something that we quickly have to adjust on the fly. That's what law enforcement does. That's what public safety does. We are crisis managers. And so whether council passes this or not, we will continue to do our jobs to the best of our ability. It is a tool and a resource that we would like to keep and we would like to be able to use in investigations. But at the end of the day, if this is council's decision, then we as an organization will continue to move forward and continue to still provide the high level of service that we can to our community.
Thank you.
Councilmember Popkin.
I think what is different here is that people are reacting to, myself included, the fact that this is being supercharged by Flock's by a technology. Cameras did not get invented by Flock. License plate readers did not get invented by Flock. It's the integration of Flock of the camera technology and the license plate readers with AI that's supercharging this in a way that's frankly like just new and different. And like new can be great and new can be horrible, and it can be anywhere on that spectrum, right? And so I think that's where a lot of the reaction to that, like, because I'm not hearing a robust chorus of people saying like, get rid of Axon, like that's not coming out here, but yet that is still a valuable tool to the department, and it's still a cloud storage functionality. There's still a data privacy issue with that too, as long as it has to be managed well. If I'm understanding the different technologies correctly here, so please correct me now if I misstated anything right there.
Yeah, so I think what's critically important to understand is that the idea of tag readers is not something new.
Right.
It's not something that showed up in the last few years. We've used this technology in Longmont since 2023. What I will tell you that in the 2000s, there was a company called LSAG that still exists. The state uses them that does tag readers. Axon has its own tag readers. It all uses algorithm and AI to identify things in different pieces. That is not anything new that has existed. Now, the development and the rapid deployment of it, yeah, I would argue within probably the last 5 years or more, 5, 6 years, yeah, that technology has advanced to make the searching a lot easier and us to be able to identify a vehicle quicker, meaning that, yes, we could look for an anomaly on the vehicle, right, or by make and model, where in the past, in the early 2000s, you could only search the tag and determine where it had passed a license plate reader. But that technology is not something new that's just shown up in the last year or two. That's technology that existed for several years. And so what we're going to see, and again, it's not anything it's new, we're starting to see this artificial intelligence creep into every aspect that we do. Our body cameras are currently, to speed up the officer's report writing, generates an AI report. The officer still is responsible for reading it, editing it, but we got approval from the district attorney's office to be able to use that for court purposes. So we're watching this very rapidly to develop. We are using AI to help when we get requests for videos, body camera videos. Instead of having an individual have to go through and move their mouse 1,000 times to cover up an image or put a block around something, we're using AI to help be more efficient and effective to get that done, because we get so many requests for that. So yes, the technology is ever changing. We have the ability across the city probably to use facial recognition, but we choose not to use that because we think that's an invasion of privacy as a city. And so again, all of that technology is at our fingertip. We are just trying to be responsible in how we use it, and understand what it is and the repercussions and how it affects our community. So I would say yes, tag readers have been around for a while. What it's doing now, yes, allows us to be able to specifically identify a vehicle quicker, but that technology has been around for several years. It's not something that's just shown up in the last 6 months.
Well, and if I can add, in full transparency, if you look at parking control has really moved to utilizing tag readers within a car to manage parking within communities. And so there will be a question behind a question for us, because if you think about other communities, you go into many of our neighboring communities and you pay to park, you put in your license plate tag, and there's cars that are reading these license plate tags as they're moving through to enforce parking. So that there then becomes a different operational question. Is this about tag readers or is this about flock? Because that technology is showing itself in different things that we utilize. We have a car that we use right now to go through and manage parking within all of our parking lots based on time. It's LPR. And how we use it dramatically changes our capacity to manage parking. But if this is an LPR issue, and that's where council's going, we need to know that soon, because we need to rethink how we're going to restructure other options. If this is a flock issue, then there's a different question, because then we could, to answer some of the questions, is if this is a flock issue, we could talk to companies like Axon or whatever the other company is, to say, what does your system do? What does it allow us to do? Still have the same capability, but we're using a different system. And I'm trying to determine, is it a flock issue or is it an LPR issue?
Yeah, I appreciate that. You read my mind as to where I wanted to take this question, because I wasn't on council at the time when the contract was first approved, because that was 2023, right?
Yeah.
That this was first. Was that a contract and a policy discussion at the time, or an operational discussion, or a hybrid?
We mentioned it in one of the updates, similar to what we were going to do with the drone, I think, but it was connected to other things, but I can't remember off the top of my head. It may have been part of a broader AI presentation or technology presentation. I just remember we were having a lot of conversations. I think we did talk to him about where we wanted to put them, and the fact that we wanted to put them on certain corridors within the community entry points and exit points, because that's where we were actually seeing a lot of our car thefts, because they would come in adjacent to areas on high traffic highways. And I think we can find out and bring it back to you all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's one right next to where I live, and
yeah, me too.
So I'm aware of that. I think there are two things that, I guess, today was supposed to be a study session, and we've had a lot of information presented from both the public and from our staff and our police department. I generally agree with the spirit of Councilmember Marsing's motion. I'm wondering if today we want to start by limiting the data sharing, just with the flock, outside of while we deal with some of these very real policy and operational things, I'm wondering if today we deal with just the data sharing, because that could be turned off tomorrow, right?
Yep. Tonight.
You could tonight, but yeah, we got 2 hours left of today. But so we could, in theory, say, hey, let's stop sharing the data outside of the city of Longmont for now. Let's get a handle on how we're using the technologies, not necessarily Flock or not. How we're using these technologies operationally and policy-wise, because I guarantee this council this will not be the only time in the next 4 years or 2 years that we will face AI-related like data sharing issues as technology rapidly evolves. And there's a broader question there. And so rather than make a knee-jerk decision now on the overall contract, I mean, I don't even know, like, when does the contract terminate? Like, are we paying early termination fees? Like, what's happening here? Like,
maybe the contract was re-upped, but I don't know when it starts.
Our contract was for 2 years, so 23, 24. So we're looking at potentially October of 25 was re-upped. We'll have to pull the new contract to see. The original contract was for 24 months, so which would have made it renewed in October. Okay, well, maybe somebody has it, so hang on.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've got it on here too, so I don't know what the...
In which case, then, while you're looking at that, I guess a question for Councilmember Marsing. What would you, actually, a question for the clerk. Can you repeat the motion that I seconded originally? There's been a lot of discussion since.
Yes, the motion was to direct staff, to direct city manager to work with city staff, including the Department of Public Safety, to terminate or non-renew all current contracts with Flock Group, decline any expansion of Flock infrastructure, and remove all existing Flock Group Inc. infrastructure from the city of Longmont, including cameras, software access, cloud storage, and associated hardware by March 31st, 2026, in accordance with all contract terms and applicable laws, with any necessary exceptions for active investigations or legal obligations.
Thank you. Okay, so at a minimum, we have to amend that because we can't remove all Flock infrastructure, as we just heard, from private properties, to my knowledge at this moment. Whether you want it or not, we can't. Like, that's private property decision. So we need to think about what we're actually directing at this point. My gut instinct here is to start simply and say, like, let's just pause the data sharing with any other agencies, keep that for our internal operational purposes. Start there. That feels like a reasonable, rational place to start to get more control over this while we look into some more of the contractual issues, which it sounds like it's not up for renewal in the next month. So we have to then figure out the contractual issues and any legal requirements there. Again, whether you like the technology or not. So that would be potentially my suggestion here. But Councilmember Marsing, what was the rationale for March 26?
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Popkin. The March of 26 number was based off of other communities who have gone through this process in the last period of time to remove Flock infrastructure. Some communities have done it within a week. Some communities have done it within a much shorter period of time than the end of Q1 of 2025, of 2026. I think the contract information is relevant, certainly, and if we go about this path, I want to make sure we do it the right way. My concern here in pulling back is not just that that we obviously, we can hit the button and stop data sharing with any other agency, and certainly that's a good safeguard. My concern is that the existence of this kind of data to begin with, controlled by a corporate entity that we do not have, like, many of the other systems that have been discussed tonight, yes, they include a lot of the tech, but we have far more control to a varying degree over many of those systems than we do over Flock's data, or over the data that Flock uses and possesses. So my concern is, to answer Harold's question, for me personally, it's less a reader issue and more of a Flock issue for me. So my... am I supportive in theory of turning that off? Certainly, and if that's the direction that the majority of the council wants to go, I'm willing to do that. I still feel that termination ultimately is the path I would like to go down, but doing it the right way matters. So, but to answer your question, it was about, based on other communities who've gone through the process.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. So yeah, and I think that we can get to termination even on that time frame, even if we don't make that motion tonight, as long as we have the contractual information on where we're going. I think I did want to address one more thing before we kind of get back to the logistics of the motion, which is there's a logic out here, which kind of always, there's a logic or an assumption that we wouldn't have had. I am grateful for the public safety efficacy that we've had in the cases you described. But there's an assumption that we wouldn't have had success another way if we didn't, if you had look, and I am not a public safety or law enforcement professional, and so please push back if I am misguided here, but if we didn't have those systems, you would have other tools that you would use to the fullest extent possible to try to address the crime issue, the report, the public safety incident, the hazard, and the existence of any tool. If I don't have a hammer at home, I might use a screwdriver to try to put in a nail in the wall. Might not be the most effective tool, but I still might try to do it. And I still probably will find a workaround rather than running out to Lowe's to get a hammer at 1 a.m. if I really was passionate about putting up a picture, right? And so it's just a question of how and when we're using tools. And it's certainly not to say that our capable police department, the other tools that you have, wouldn't have come in handy in solving that. So it's kind of like this lighthouse principle. Like, you don't know that a lighthouse is inherently, like, you could take away a lighthouse because ships haven't crashed into the coast, but that's because most of them are seeing the lighthouse and turning away. Obviously now we have radar, so it's a different tool. But I'm worried that we fall into the trap that just because we solved something with a tool doesn't mean we couldn't have solved it without it. And so whatever technology we run into going forward, whether it's for public safety purposes or others, I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that one does not beget the other, that they are not inherently mutually exclusive. And we actually have done a lot in a lot of ways. And I think your point on you would need other resources is extremely valid here. And that's part of the reason why I want to just make sure we think through this, whatever decision we make. But that's, I think, a logic I don't want to fall into a trap on as we explore a range of different technology issues.
So, Councilman Wright, I don't necessarily disagree with you. There are ways to solve cases. What is always important for us is time, is of the essence, right? Time is working against us.
Sure.
Some of these cases we could have solved, some of these cases we wouldn't have solved, right? We would have had maybe a description of something, right? Let's say a vehicle. But there are scenarios and there's cases where we can clearly show that it's helped us quickly catch and apprehend the individual. So it has sped up that. There's also cases where we can show that the number of manpower hours it would have taken to do more traditional ways and use other tools that are not as efficient and effective would have spent hundreds of manpower hours to do things where we were able to solve that within a matter of hours or minutes.
Sure.
And so that is the key. And so when you talk about removing a tool from an investigation, the more tools that we have at our disposal, the better chance and opportunity we have to either clear an individual, make an arrest, or move forward with an investigation. And so in a tool like this, is what we have shared, I know Chief Moore just shared a few of those, a lot of those cases, yes, 120 cases, we might have been able to solve. We might not have been able to solve some of those, just simply based on the amount of tools we have, the more opportunity we have to solve it. You can use, as your example, a screwdriver to put a hole in the wall. You're probably going to make a mess. It's going to take you twice as long if you don't have the right tool. And so that's simply all we're saying is that making sure that we have the right tools to meet the needs and the expectations of the community. What I will tell you is when I started almost 29 years ago, the expectations of what we brought to court was a lot less than what expected today. And so it may take an officer hours upon hours to complete a simple report for an arrest to where it would have taken less than 45 minutes in years past. So the more tools and technology we can use, the quicker I can get them back on the street or solve this case and move on to the next. So I just bring that up because as you mentioned earlier, is that we're struggling with manpower. And the more officers we have, the more that we can do, right? I can have officers on the street versus being at the office doing reports, right?
And we were talking about funding some additional officers almost a year ago from when I was first appointed on a couple ways.
So I don't disagree. So your statement is correct. There are cases that we could have solved other ways. It might have taken longer. And there are cases we would not have solved. I'm comfortable saying that on both sides.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Councilmember Prieto.
So I was gonna hold it because I thought it had to be motion related, but it sounds like the floor is open, so I wanna ask my original questions if that's okay.
So the
And
floor
this-
is open for this. Are you talking about
Yeah,
this one? Yes,
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead. Go for it.
So I think to Harold's question, like, is it a flock issue? And I think it is. I think I can speak for myself. I want to provide our local police department all the tools that they need to solve crimes and ensure that we live in a safe place, and especially someone who has children. I would want the police department to have all the tools possible if anything ever happened to where I need to track down my children or ensure their safety. And so I just want to hit that point that I absolutely value that and that protection and that feeling of safety. My question, I think my concerns are more like, when I think of it like my phone, right? I take a picture on my phone and it's on my phone, but then it goes into the Google Cloud, right? And I can control what's in my phone, but once it's in that Google Cloud, like they say, nothing's ever deleted, right? And so I think about it in that instance, and I think about like future of like what can be done with this data and who can it be shared with and how can it impact residents in the future. And I think of things like insurance hikes, right? Like if certain data is shared about our driving, you know, or our speed or how often we're getting tickets or, you know, like it could be a real problem for residents and cause, you know, their insurance to hike. And so there's other aspects to this conversation that I'm thinking beyond, you know, just, I absolutely trust that public safety is doing their part in making sure that they're being responsible with this data. It's just the conversation of flock. And we can't ensure that they are. And so one of the questions that I have is flock required to notify the police department when data has been breached? And have they during our time that we've had contracts with them?
So Flock has been very transparent with us. And Flock has never had any of its data hacked or breached since it's been in conception. So we verified, we spoke to the company because there was a lot of questions. Some of you shared that video with us related to that. And certainly Assistant Chief Petrowski could go more into the video and what that individual did and the device that he had versus what an actual Flock device is, and some of those pieces he can certainly talk in more detail about that. I don't think for anyone over here on this side of the table feels that anyone from council doesn't trust public safety. And we even heard that from our community, right? We've done a lot of work to build that transparency. We want to continue to build that. And I think to Mr. Dominguez's question is it a Flock issue or is it a tag reader issue? Because if it is, then we really need to evaluate a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the city. For an example, our traffic cameras that we're using for issuing citations for people that are speeding, right? We need to look at our parking, right? All of those things. So if it's an LPR issue, then that needs to be a broader conversation. If it's a Flock issue, then again, public safety is happy to go out and is happy to look at what other other companies are out there, what they're providing, and whether or not the way they control stuff is do differently. And so to your point, yes, you are tracked more closely with your phone and my phone sitting here than you are with Flock. But I certainly understand the concerns the community has brought, so would not diminish that. But I think the issue is it's a tool that we use. We do our best in due diligence to pick the right vendors and policies within the organization to ensure that data is protected and properly used. And when it's not, we hold individuals accountable for that. So certainly appreciate your comments. I don't disagree with you, but yes, ma'am.
I think if I can jump in, if council says this is a Flock issue because we're concerned with how Flock is managing their data, and the direction was go to those other companies and see how they approach it and see how they handle their data. That's perfectly, because we're talking about two different issues here. The tool is the LPR. Flock is merely a company that provides it, but we know there's other companies that do this. And if LPR is not the issue, and you want us to research other companies to look at the service, that's a different question. If it's not the company doing it, but it's the LPR, then there's a broader set of questions that come into play. And so the direction you give us, I think, is hinging on kind of that question. And because if it's LPR, we're going to need to talk about a lot of other things.
Okay. One more comment, and then I'll be done. I think I think there's a lot of wisdom that goes into going with trusted, long-time sources or companies who have a track record of being responsible. And I know personally, like when I think of Flock, it's it's like a new kind of company. They're expanding, and I don't feel like a lot of the bugs have really been worked out, or the cases have been brought before the courts in specific ways. And so I think for me, I would want them to establish themselves a little bit more and, really show that they can be safe in how they're managing data, et cetera, before I would feel comfortable pursuing. And I think it's a Flock issue and not necessarily the plate issue. I think it's just a new company, and there's a lot of things that have come to play and concerns from the community. And so I would encourage staff to look into other technologies who are more trusted and safeguarded compared to Flock.
Okay.
Give you an example. The company that, I'm looking at you all, the company that manages our body cameras and all the video that we have, Axon has an LPR system. If council's direction is, here's a time, you want us to come back and bring you information based on these other systems, that's a different direction that we need. If council's direction is to get rid of it, then we're getting rid of it and not bringing any other options back. And so that's some clarity that we need.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, and you can ask it later. Are you gonna amend your motion, or are you gonna?
I'm willing to add, yeah.
Okay, so Councilmember Chris, since your question is more, it's not in regard to this motion because it was a comment made earlier. I'm gonna do. Okay, I'm gonna actually move it to, thank you, because if we can get this motion moving along.
Yeah. I am certainly willing to amend the motion to add a line at the end about, and bring back additional, additional options connected to, additional companies or options connected to data security. I did not necessarily workshop that as effectively as I could, but I think the intent being, it is a Flock concern. I am concerned, we as a council, if this motion were to pass, are concerned about Flock and the usage of Flock data. If public safety wants to pursue other tools and bring those back to council, that would be something I would be willing to add to the motion and would amend as such. I'm not sure what that would need in terms of a second, but. Yeah.
It's a friendly amendment.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we would take it as a friendly, okay. Then yeah, I will certainly add that and say, to be clear, to give you clear direction, the direction is terminate Flock, bring us back other options. Yes.
Okay, so, Councilmember Christ.
Chief Artis, when I said, is there another technology that could do this, you indicated that you would be giving up some of the functions that you rely on with Flock, because you chose Flock for particular, as a particular strategy. It created a. And so is this, if we're bringing back other options of other LPRs, then we would be comparing and contrasting what we would be giving up and what we would be gaining with other company products.
Yes, potentially. I think the biggest challenge right now is that, yes, Flock is the market leader in this. And so the ability to utilize other cameras within our region, so City of Boulder, Boulder County, Meade, Firestone, Frederick, where we share a commonality of crimes, we would lose that capability potentially. And so that's the issue. The other issue is, and Harold, correct me if I'm wrong, we may have to look at an RFP, correct? We can't just bring back a company?
We'll have to work with purchasing based on council's direction on this.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things we would bring back to you. I mean, frankly, what I was trying to get at is this an LPR issue or is this a Flock issue? Because there's ancillary activities that we would need to look at. We would bring something back to you all, almost do an RFI. And then doing the RFI, we can, and honestly, this may require us to go into an executive session because we can't share confidential information. But we would give you a compare and contrast on this. We'll have to work through the logistics on that, but we can bring that back.
So, and part of that is the sharing of information, which was mentioned by Councilman Popkin, and also to Councilwoman Prieto's comment. The thing about technology is, like, you're the new guy in town and you have the hot new technology, but then somebody comes along and competes with you. So that may be very shortly that we have some competition for Flock.
Yeah, and I just want to be clarified, Flock's been around since 2017. Axon just started their LPRs within the last probably 8 months? Within the last 6 to 8 months. So,
Okay, so they're already peddling to catch up.
yeah, so there are other vendors that are peddling to catch up because it's not really been a market that other people could get into because Flock already existed and had a hold. So that's typically why you find not only Longmont but other agencies go with Flock, is because it's already well established and it's been around for almost 8-9 years now. And so again, it's been the leader in these types of tag readers. And so again, we'll have to look into, as I mentioned earlier, and see what else is out there as far as other vendors and where they're at with their technology.
Now, is that damaging to us to not share information? For instance, when we talk about the woman who was shot and you were able to catch the perpetrator in Lyons, would that have kept you from finding that individual in Lyons by not being able to share information?
That is correct. When we say share information is we get to see if that license plate has been on another camera in another jurisdiction. So specifically to the incident where the woman was shot in front of her kids.
It was horrible.
We got that hit in the Lyons area, so we knew where that suspect was and could get there rapidly. That's because Boulder County had that Flock camera in Lyons, and this area in general has Flock cameras. So another incident happened where we actually assisted Weld County with a homicide suspect, and they were able to find him because of our cameras. So that kind of sharing, we would lose that.
Okay. Well, this is all about people and everyone feeling safe in a myriad ways, safe with our privacy, safe that our police department has the tools it needs to do its job. And so we almost need a brainstorming of what's the right answer. And that may be changing as it goes forward. So thank you so much for your honest answers.
Okay. Councilmember McCoy, and then we're going to move on to voting.
Right. I just feel like I just need so much more information. There's so many contractual elements of this. It's not that I don't want to see Flock go away. I'm disgusted by their whole approach by sharing information, and I'm disgusted with these other municipalities that would allow somebody to get share this information. And I know we have vulnerable members of our community. I see them here tonight. I see them out in the community on a day-to-day basis, and I'm concerned about their safety from a government that seems to be more focused on authoritarian behaviors in the last year than I've ever seen in my lifetime. And so, but I do want to make sure that we deal with this correctly. And I feel like there's so many questions that are still needing to be answered. I mean, this is a good study session, but we never got to the chance of actually having the real conversation. We listened to a lot of testimony, and I think that's absolutely critical to democracy. But I think at this point, I wouldn't be supporting this because I want to figure out why all this information, where this information, how do we, decipher and boil down all this information. It's so important that we don't mess up our contracts and other things like that. That's going to be money to the city, and in the meantime, I understand we have still these vulnerable populations that we need to somehow protect, and I would be the first to support them. I just don't feel like this is the right mechanism or right time. I like to, and I hate to re-study things, to the point of nauseam, but I want this done right, not done in a way that harms our, safety and justice department and our police officers. I want anybody who's ever had somebody commit a serious crime against them really wants justice served, and I think that we want that done. And to Lance's point over here, I don't want to sell out our society for safety when we, just for the price tag. But I still think we still need to think about where the community truly is. So, I think that the voice of reason here says that we need to slow down and really study this and deal with our contractual agreements and deal with our what this means. And if that means that the best choice is to go and lock it down as tight as we possibly can tonight, we do that, and then we move forward in our next study session to deal with this in a way that we really actually get the answers that we need. I think the community would much more appreciate that than just getting out of a contract. I don't know how that serves us in other aspects. So that's my feeling.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. Is it in regard to this? We got to wrap it up. We still have an executive session after the end.
I know, it's going to be a joyride. Councilmember Marsing, I'm sympathetic to some of the points that Councilmember McCoy is making. I'm wondering if you would consider a revision right now, because I personally would like to understand just like what are the termination clauses. There could be for instance, a clause that says all data that was shared just immediately like evaporates into Flock, and like I don't want that to happen either. And so would you be open to, I think it would be in the spirit of your original motion, which would be a motion that directs staff to not pursue any future renewals and to look at new options to replace the services that Flock is currently providing, and then pause any data sharing with other communities at this time while we look for the next options. It's not the most eloquent motion I've ever, but basically like be clear that no renewal will happen, and that we're going to look at options to basically replace those services or close to that.
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I would, with one question for the public safety team, which is related to DFR. Because my understanding is that DFR has already been purchased, or have we, or like, if I were to accept that motion, the DFR program would be paused. That would be, we would say, no, we're not doing that yet.
So we've signed the contract for the DFR program.
Okay.
So again, if council's direction on the DFR is we would have to reevaluate it based on as you know, when you purchase different suites, a part of the software, the prices go down.
Mhm.
So we would have to go back and reevaluate all of that because, again, it's all based on package deals like Axon, where we have multiple pieces of Axon. The more we have, the less it is. This would be the same scenario. So we would have to put all that on pause.
So my question would be then, because I'm sympathetic to Councilmember Popkins' suggestion, especially because I'm getting the tenor of where we're going here. But I want to know, from a public safety perspective, if in the context of that motion, we would have, like, would DFR move forward? Or would that be not part of the like, are we catching it in time, kind of? Or is it, where are we at with that? Like, would it be considered the expansion, or has it already been done? That's kind of my question.
We haven't taken possession of it, so.
So it's sit in a garage somewhere in the Safety and Justice Center?
No, we
Okay,
don't have
okay.
it, so we would have to reevaluate that.
Okay.
I can get you more information on that.
Yeah. Okay. I am willing to go ahead and make the amendment as such, to change my motion to reflect Councilmember Popkins' language, which would be that we are pausing any extension of flock infrastructure, requesting, you said it so eloquently, Councilmember Popkin, and it's getting late. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Popkin, or Mayor. Recognize.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
And we pause the expansion of any services with Flock, do not pursue any future renewals, and then seek
Explore other options.
seek direct alternatives to
Yeah.
the current technology provided, as close to the services that we need. For
I would certainly accept that, yeah.
And that's why I put him next to you.
Can we rewind? What did I say?
Yeah.
It was pause any further expansion, pause any data sharing of Flock, specifically outside our community.
Yeah, stop that data sharing, yeah.
Right. And maybe can I give you guys, would it be, sorry, apologies, just so I don't mess up any active investigations, do you want like a week of grace period on that? Would that be just, I don't want to like just.
So I don't think it matters what day you pause it, because we could get the investigation tomorrow that would be impacted too. So
Okay.
I think it would just behoove us to move forward if that's your direction.
Then let's just do it effective tomorrow. And so pause any data sharing beyond our community with Flock services. Do not pursue any future expansion or renewal of services, and then actively seek alternatives to the current services and products that Flock currently provides for the city.
Sorry, Mayor.
Pausing data sharing, stopping future expansions and renewals, and reevaluating the services to come up with alternatives. There's the pocket-sized version.
Councilmember Marcy.
My one request would be a date on that it comes back to us by. Like, that those alternatives come back to us by, so that we can have a conversation about it. Like, so that and I guess that's a process question of like when that would come back, or how that would get determined from.
Because now they're having to stop
Yeah.
what they're doing as far as responsibilities, other items that they have to take care of. So I want
I
to
wanna give them
back.
time. I wanna give them time,
Yeah,
is what
to
I'm saying.
what would be realistic for you to bring something back?
Yeah, I want to give them time.
I'm thinking we can shoot for March, and if we can't do it by then, we'll provide you with an update on it when we can reasonably think we can do it.
Works for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it still my motion?
No. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote.
Okay. Hang on one second. Can we?
So you're updating the language, correct?
Yes.
So we're not voting on this motion written.
Yeah,
We're voting on the one that was agreed upon.
The word terminate shouldn't be in there yet, because we want to look at the contract language, but the not pursuing any renewal or expansion of services.
Sorry. To direct staff to pause data sharing outside our community effective tomorrow, December 10th. With Flock services, do not pursue any future expansions and come up with other options by March 26.
Expansions or renewals.
Or renewals.
discussion. I felt it was important.
Oh.
So, yeah, we can vote now. Oh, and I lost everything.
Once the updated typing,
Oh.
please, 'cause I don't see a vote right now.
Oh,
Thank you.
did I? Oh.
I had a vote. Okay. Still say.
And just thanks for everyone for sticking out this long and for coming out and sharing your opinions. Really appreciate that. I know that got complicated very quickly, as most things do.
It still says 20.
Maybe refresh your screen.
No, should I refresh? Sorry, give me a second. I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, mine is.
Oh, it says terminate.
It still says terminate.
We are,
I mean, I'll vote for it.
yeah,
You have the
we're
right-
voting on the language she read.
Yeah, no, I got it.
So go ahead and vote.
I don't see it, but
No.
it's not coming up.
Well, you,
Okay, so just
she
vote
doesn't
and
have
then
it updated
it's on
anyways.
what was, okay, correct.
I don't know, I'm debating, yeah.
Sorry, technology issues.
Mm-mm. Oh, no. Well, you know, I could have waited until next week. Yeah, 'cause I think, oh.
Yes, that's
I mean, I'm here. Oh, darn it. And I lost it again. Jeez Louise. Did you see that? I've got the spinning wheel of death.
Does it say it and bring back other options?
We will fix it.
Okay.
We'll fix it in the minutes.
So, let's see here. Now let me go
Data
back
sharing,
here.
future expenses, renewals, and bring back alternatives by March, yeah.
So let's see. I had the spinning wheel of death, and there we go. Okay, and now we're waiting. I know it is very touchy. And then now it's waiting. Should we do a hand vote?
I came through.
It was there.
Oh,
It came through.
it came
Came
through?
through.
I don't
Go
see. Oh.
it carried with,
I just need to
Councilmember
see the
Chris.
results. It just says it carried, but it didn't say who.
We closed out, sorry.
Okay. So, okay, so that motion carries 5-1 with Councilmember Christ in opposition. Okay, so now we're moving on.
Mayor,
Yes.
would it be possible for us to move board appointments to next week so we can have the executive session conversation?
Yes, let's do it. I am, yeah, making the executive decision to move that on. Okay, so, having done that, we are now at mayor and council comments. I think you are all commented out. City manager remarks.
No comments, Mayor and Council.
City, hold on, city attorney remarks.
No comments, Mayor.
Is it something, okay. Okay, Councilmember Christ.
Just before everyone leaves, I wanted to point out for those who live on 17th and Airport that the Vision Zero meeting is on Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center, and that's the task force. And I believe 17th was one of the places where we're looking at traffic mitigation.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Okay, so are there any motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, so the motion was made by Councilmember McCoy, or Mayor Pro Tem McCoy, and seconded by Councilmember Christ. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Boom.